Sit for your shit. Feel it now, 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 now. Think about it later. Feel it now, 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 now. Think about it later. Feel it now, 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 now. Think about it later. Feel it now, 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 now. Think about it later. The damage is done, but I don't care. You're worth the cost, but I don't care. All I ever wanna be is eyes for eyes, lips for lips.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Airthings.
I'm ahead of the game.
Well, the phone is always ringing, I'm caught up on the line. Got a string around my finger, remember who am I? I'm a boss and I'm honestly off my rocker, but follow me, I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the game. Well, I'm only ever slinging, I'm working overtime. Got a song and I'm the singer, the melody, the vibe. I'm a prodigy, logically, I'm impossibly wanted, and they'll remember my name. They'll remember my name. Ooh, well, I'm ahead now. I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the game. Ooh, well, I'm ahead now. I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the game. Well, I'm ahead now. Well, I'm ahead now. I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of the game.
Chessable, the definitive solution for studying chess. Choose from one of the largest online chess libraries in the world, with hundreds of titles ranging from classic books through to our exclusive Chessable courses.
Welcome to the new Chess24 playing experience. Play in light mode or dark mode. Choose from a range of time controls or create a custom game and get paired with players from around the world fast. Enjoy a polished playing experience while making moves on a fresh, responsive board to claim your victories. Train and improve with over 80,000 puzzles. And that's not all. Download now and discover what more you can enjoy in our brand new app.
Okay, so let's send a challenge.
Here is challenging. Nice graphics, easy to see. What are you thinking about? You're looking how it can be the most painful?
Exactly. Okay, fine.
That I give up a phone. He wants to be even rude.
It's time to take control of your journey towards chess mastery. Magnus Carlsen introduces Chessable, the definitive solution for studying chess. Move Trainer uses the science of spaced repetition to identify your strengths and eliminate your weaknesses. There's no need to set up a board, remember which page you're on, or keep track of all the moves you miss. Move Trainer empowers you to go from the opening to the end game with confidence. It's a seamless, effective, and fun way to study chess. Choose from one of the largest.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. Today is the semi-finals. How is everyone doing in chat? I'm going to actually pull up chat before we take off from here. A big hello to everyone. We saw such a fierce battle in the preliminaries, and that led to somewhat of a calmer contest during the quarterfinals. 3 of the favorites cruised through to the semis, while the closely contested match was between Artemiev and Ding Liren. This is how it went. And Jan Nepomniachtchi beat Vincent Keimer. Magnus Carlsen came on top of Liam, while Andrei Asipenko cruised through after winning against Eric. Vladislav Ding was the match to watch because here there was a lot of drama. Ding Liren pulled an early win, after which it looked like it was going to be a Ding match, but in the end, Artemiev, finding an important resource, managed to survive and win Game 3 before taking on Game 4 with another victory and going into the semi-finals. We had some tweets and some reactions by our players who didn't make it. Let's take a look at what Eric and Liam had to say about their performance at the Airthings Masters. Well, that was a fun ride at the Masters. I missed a couple critical moments, but it was good to get match experience. I think in these formats, the key is absolutely that. Some of these players have played this so many times, and it all comes down to the experience in these demanding formats. Eric, we've got to say it was an absolute joy and pleasure to see the combative chess that you produced during the event. And this is what Liam had to say. It was a thrill to play the Masters. Thank you, Champions Chess Tour. And we also look forward to having Liam back. Now, this has been such a fantastic event. With a grueling format, we have seen such combative play, and the players have had to make sure that they have the best possible environment and condition to be able to give their best. And for that, we've got Airthings with us. And today joining us from Airthings is Lauren Alkaya. I'm going to welcome her on. Hi, Lauren. How are you doing?
Hi, Tanya. Very good. Thanks.
Lauren, I remember we met in Dubai at the World Championship match.
We did. Yeah, I got to come for a couple days there. It was really fun to see it live in person.
Absolutely. It's so nice to have you with us. Now, this event has been absolutely thrilling so far. We've had so many twists and turns, ups and downs. There's been tension and nerves. We've seen it all. And during all of this, the players have to make sure that the environment is conducive to give their best. It feels like Airthings is the perfect fit for the tour, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's been so much fun to be a partner with you guys. We've been a partner almost since the very beginning. And as another Norwegian company as well, it's been really, really fun to be a part of that from almost the beginning and helping our ambassadors really have better air quality and think about that while they're playing as well.
Absolutely. Now, also, I've noticed, and I think this is a fact, that through the pandemic, Lauren, we've seen this big boom in online gaming, esports, and chess. But that also means that a lot of us and a lot of kids end up spending a lot of time indoors, in their basements, on their computer screens, which means that they really need to take care of the air quality that they're breathing and the environment that they're in. So how does Airthings come into that, and how does it ensure a healthy environment in such cases?
Yeah, I mean, the first step we always say is so important to just monitor. Everyone who uses our products, including our ambassadors with the Champions Chess Tour, they just say, now that I know what's going on, I can really easily make changes, like opening a window. But there's also other things you can do even easier than opening a window, especially if you live in a place that doesn't have great outdoor air. Even just opening the door, kids sometimes spend so much time in their room with the door closed, even out to the rest of the hallway and such. And just having that door open for a little bit extra ventilation will help so much, especially with CO2 levels, which is the big one for making sure you have good cognitive ability and focus and decision making as well, which is helpful for sure with chess.
Absolutely. So these simple tips and tweaks can really help us perform better when we are sitting in front of our screens, whether it's for any kind of gaming or esports, and especially for chess.
Absolutely. It's just so easy to make these changes, and monitoring is the best way to start. And to add on to that, with kids in basements, I mean, that's a huge thing. I'm from the US, so it's a huge thing in the US. We spent so much time, hours and hours and hours in our basements. And one of the ways that we actually started was with radon detectors. So that was kind of the original idea from Airthings. And radon is so easy to test for, but it can cause cancer. So it's just so easy to test for. Why not just check and make sure? Since it comes from the ground, it's an odorless gas that you can't tell is there, and long-term exposure can cause cancer. So it's just so important when you have young kids with small lungs that are breathing more than us adults to just test.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Airthings has been a partner with the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour since last year. And this year, we've noticed a new device with our players. Can you tell us a little bit about the key features and how it's helping them perform the best?
Absolutely. So our newest device is called the View Plus. It's our flagship device, so it has the most sensors out of all of our other devices. It's Wi-Fi operated, wireless, so super easy to have in your home. It measures 7 different sensors. Some of the key ones for chess, for instance, are CO2 particulate matter is one as well. So that's our newest one, which is like kind of smoke or pollution from outdoors or indoors, like from candles or the fireplace and such. And then it also monitors temperature, humidity, VOCs, which is like airborne chemicals, and more. So it's a really great product to really understand the air in your home.
It sounds like Airthings gives people the power to actually control the air quality, indoor air quality, and it gives them the ability to do that themselves by monitoring these levels.
Absolutely. We always say, I mean, people often kind of tend to go straight for like an air purifier, but it's so important to like really know what's going on. You don't know if you need an air purifier. You might have spent a lot of money on something that maybe you don't need. Maybe it's actually humidity that's the problem or whatever it is. So it's important to like diagnose that problem first.
I think that's a very interesting point, especially because different countries and different cities have got different air qualities. For example, I come from India, and probably here I would need something totally different from, let's say, somewhere in Europe, where all one would need to do is open the window once in a while. So having the Airthings device would actually just tell you what needs to be done exactly to make sure that you're breathing good air.
Absolutely. And our products, we have an app, so they're all app connected, and that product will actually tell you, notifications and give you like tips and pointers on things that you can do as well.
All right, well, we've been seeing the data from the players and their Airthings device, and that's always interesting to correlate it to their chess performance. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us and for partnering up with the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye. This was quite a fun chat, as Airthings has been empowering our players with the best environment that they can get to give their best at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. Now, today is all about the semifinals, and we've got the same format where the players have got only one mini match against each other. They're going to play 4 rapid games, 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. And in case that's a tie, then we move on to a blitz, which is 5 minutes with a 3-second increment. And if that ends in a tie, then we're going to go on to the Armageddon. Let me just quickly pull up chat as well. We would love to have predictions as well. If Alakine Battery is in chat or any of the other moderators, you know what the matchups are. And looking at them, it does look like we could be pretty much on course for a very anticipated finals. We could potentially see Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi face each other in the finals, well, in a match format for the first time since the World Championship. But of course, before that, Andrei Sipienko and Vladislav Artemiev will have something to say about that. Now, I think for these players, of course, chess is on their mind, but today is a very difficult day. And probably more than chess is on their mind. And I think we did hear it from Jan Nepomniachtchi and Esipienko on Twitter as well, where they took a stand on the political situation that's going on. And this is what the players had to say. History has seen no lack of Black Thursdays, but today is blacker than the others. I think full respect to Jan for taking a strong stand against the situation. And Esipienko, this is what he had to say. I really hope for a peaceful resolution to the situation. It's terrible to realize that all this is happening. we all feel very strongly about the situation, and our support is with the people of Ukraine. And we hope and pray for everyone's safety and that they pull through these difficult times and with strength. But right now, unfortunately for these players, they have to try and do what they can to focus on the games. The format, once again, extremely demanding. And I think for some of them who didn't make it, it's one of those days where you want to just be asleep and wake up and wish that all of this is a bad dream, but it's not. So from that perspective, perhaps the players who didn't make it at least have the relief of not having to fight for all that is coming up in this big semifinals. All right. Well, Peter will be joining us shortly, and we do have a poll running. Who will win today, Jan or Andrei Asipenko? And of course, in the other matchup, we've got Magnus taking on Artemiev. Also, let's take a look at what are the prizes the players are fighting for. Now, we know in the preliminaries of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, it's based on the point system. The more points that you score, the more money you make. Well, now in the knockout stages, there is a guaranteed prize fund. Players in the quarterfinals get a minimum of $2,000. And if you make it to the semis, these 4 players get $6,000, while the runner-up $15,000, and the winner will go back with $25,000. Not just that, chat. The 2 players who do make it to the finals, confirm their spot on to the next major. All right, what is going on in chat? How's everyone doing? Well, I do see that there is a lot of topic. Well, we got to focus on the chess today as much as we can for the next couple of hours as we take on the semifinals. And it's only one match. Let's not forget it's only one match. Let's bring up our bracket one more time and talk about predictions and expectations out of these players, especially around the kind of opening that we can expect. All right, so Ian Nepomniachtchi against Andrei Asipenko. It's a Russian face-off. Going to be an interesting one. Of course, these 2 players know each other really well. Asipenko has been very impressive. Ian Nepomniachtchi, of course, the recent World Championship challenger. The one thing that really works for Jan in these events and this format is just how quickly he plays, and how not just quick, not just fast, but he's also making all the good moves. So Andrei Asipenko, I would say, is the underdog in this match, but not by that much. He's also been showing absolute fighting chess in difficult position, coming up with some great resources. So Jan Nepomniachtchi, though a favorite, but I wonder what our chat thinks by how much of a margin is Jan actually a favorite. Also, our next bracket, just give me a moment. Vladislav Artemiev against Magnus Carlsen. Chat, what do you think about this one? Now, I think when it comes to match play, nobody has the kind of experience and expertise as Magnus does. He just seems invincible when it comes to match play, and his experience in these events, in this format, is also immense. But the one thing about Artemiev is that in pretty much every time control, he has shown to be a tough opponent for Magnus, and especially at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour previously, he was absolutely brilliant. I would say that Magnus, once again, well, he's a favorite in any match he plays. It's going to be interesting to see if either of these ones manage to go into playoffs. In the playoffs, we will see blitz games with 5 minutes and 3 second increment. I think we've got our results. We've got our votes. Wow, Ian Nepomniachtchi at 78% and Andrei Asipenko at 21%. Chat believes in the World Championship challenger. Let's see what you guys have to say about the Magnus Vlad matchup as well. And to talk more about the action that's coming up, I see that I'm being joined by my co-commentator, our chess expert, Peter Leko is with us. Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
Hello, Tanya. Hello, everyone. Let me start by wishing a very, very happy birthday to Chess24 and the whole chess community. It's such a delight to be part of this team. It's really a pleasure always to be working with you guys. And I also would like to make a small little surprise, a birthday present for Chess24 and the viewers. I would like to announce a Banter Blitz coming up after the event. I mean, that will be a special birthday Banter Blitz. I'm really loving you guys. I have been doing the last one after the New Year. and it was such a wonderful resonance. Thank you very much for it. And I'm very happy to be back in coming days. I mean, after the event will finish, we'll find a nice date with the Chess24 team, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, wow. Not just you, Peter. Chat is super excited to hear that they'll get an opportunity to play a game against you, with you, and banter while playing chess. That should be fun, chat. So definitely keep an eye out for that. There is a 50% discount on going premium, which gives you the opportunity to play against the tour players. And now it turns out against Peter as well after the event. Peter, lots of messages coming in, wishing you with greetings on our chat. And I have to ask you, what do you think about the matchups that we've got today? Your predictions and your take on the semifinals.
Yes, well, it's a very, very tough day. We all know, you have already mentioned those tweets by the players. Yeah, definitely with all this situation looming, it should be very, very difficult for the players to concentrate. I mean, I think that this Nepo-Yesipenko match will be also very, very tough also for Artemiev to play under this situation. But I do hope that the players will manage to focus on their games, because we know what brilliant chess players and sportsmen they are. And I'm really looking forward to this clash. I already heard this, that yeah, Nepo against Yesipenko, they should know each other well. Yes, maybe, but I think no, because Yesipenko is a completely different generation, and they haven't really been playing together in the national team yet. And I think they haven't played so many games. So in this regard, I feel like this match between Jan and Andre will be a completely new derby. And probably something that probably we have to get used to, because Andre is improving in rapid pace.
In rapid pace at rapid chess, that's what he needs to do today, Peter. And I think I absolutely agree with you. I think today the biggest challenge for these players is going to be trying to be as focused as they can and give their best as much as they can to the game, with everything going on around all of us, really, but especially for these players playing in the semis. We're going to see what happens. By the way, we did run a poll, and Magnus at 84% favorite against Vlad at 15%. I kind of understand that. I think in a match play, Magnus would always win a poll with a heavy margin. What I want to know, and I know we're supposed to be unbiased in the commentary, but I want to know this, and I want to hear this from chat. How many of you are secretly hoping for a Magnus-Jan final? Because, you know, it's kind of a bit of an anticipated final in this one, Peter.
Yes, that's true. But also, let's come back to this poll. Yeah, the guys, I mean, the viewers somehow very, very euphoric. I mean, definitely Magnus is a favorite, but I mean, from my side, it's a 60-40. I think that's much closer to reality. Artemiev is an extremely powerful opponent, and he has already proven it against Magnus as well. And the match between Jan and Yesipenko, I mean, that is also very, very close. I think 60-40 is the maximum. I mean, I would almost give it 55-45. Andre is super sharp. Yes, Jan is in a perfect shape so far, but every match is new. And definitely Andre will be also super motivated. Yeah, that's another thing. So I would actually say that both matches are very close. Definitely, maybe there is a tendency for a Magnus Nepo final, but for the moment, I think we have to forget about it. We have to take it step by step and focus on the semifinals first before speculating.
100%, but I have to say the chat not so secretly is hoping for that final, and of course that has everything to do with the World Championship that we've just witnessed. But as you were mentioning, Artemiev and Andrei Yesipenko are definitely going to be big roadblocks in that. And Peter, I agree with you that the Jan-Yesipenko matchup definitely way closer than what our chat is predicting. Yesipenko is just so talented. He's always been a tough opponent for Magnus as well. And this is the first time we'll see Jan against Andre in sort of a match format situation. So completely different dynamics. I think the one thing that is really working for Jan in this tournament is just simply his form, Peter. He's been unstoppable. That has been the big confidence here. But we've seen these certain slips and moments, you know, when he's just gone too rash and too fast and then messing up the advantage. Against Andrei Yesipenko, that might actually be something to regret if he skips those advantages and those critical moments because of playing too fast.
Absolutely. I mean, also we have to point out that The reason why also Magnus is kind of suffering against Andre, that Andre has a very, very solid, very stable, very well worked out repertoire. And it's always very, very unpleasant to play against such opponents, especially in matches, yeah, because if you feel like with the white pieces you are not able to get the upper hand, or you can't really pose problems to your opponent, that automatically gives the confidence to the opponent. Yeah, he feels that, aha, I have all the chances in the world in this match. You don't have to look at ratings, you don't have to look at predictions. Yes, Jan is playing very, very fast, and this is also something that, you know, Andre's style of being super solid and merciless when he gets a chance. If for example Jan rushes with some decision and gives the chance to Andre, then Andre definitely will use it. So in this regard, I feel that Jan has to be careful. Of course, he will play quickly, he will play with a lot of confidence, but he should definitely avoid any such mistakes as he did yesterday in game one that he did not win against Vincent.
Absolutely. And I think in our matchups, Peter, I want to speak a little bit about the opening predictions that we've got going with these players. What are we expecting with white and black from Jan and from Magnus?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the Magnus match against Artemiev, I think it's pretty clear that Magnus will try to set the tone in the openings. Vladislav is trying to play something solid, but not entirely completely modern openings. Yeah, and in this case, I think it's there is a chance for Magnus to target him. E4 is kind of already very, very tempting against Vladislav. Usually he was playing his Caro-Kann, which is clearly targetable. However, lately he has also switched to E4, E5, and he has been a little bit more solid there. Also after D4, we have been seeing yesterday against Dingliren, he was suffering in the openings. He was trying to get his Karlsbad structure going, but against a very well prepared Dingliren, he was really struggling to get out of the openings. The same applies I mean, when Artem is from the white side, the big question, because he likes to play chess, yeah, he likes to play some strategical Reti or Reti English kind of openings, that with this approach, can you really put Magnus under pressure or not? Yeah, so I do feel like opening wise, Magnus will be dominating this match, but still the match outcome is far from clear.
All right, well, we have about a minute to lift off. And as always, Magnus Carlsen running behind on the clock. He is a little late. We've got the other three players, and Ian Nepomniachtchi returns with the t-shirt. Jan, Andrei Sipienko, and Artemiev are all ready to go. Magnus will be joining any moment. These are our four players left in the Airthings Masters. We're going to have four games of rapid. 15 minutes with a 10-second increment, and if that's a tie, then we move on to the Blitz with 5 minutes and a 3-second increment. If that's a tie as well, then we move on to the Armageddon. So we will have our finalists decided at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's for sure, and I can't really wait for the action to start. There is also the big question that Jan is facing Andre, and there we go, E4, E5 on the board just in time. Will we see the no, I wanted to say that since Andre was yesterday using the Marshall, and we have seen this anti-Marshall debate, that will Jan continue debating that, or will he switch to Italian? We get the answer that yes, it's going to be Italian, but this is also a territory where Andre is an extremely big specialist, working with Alexeyenko for the candidates, and also with Svidler, I heard. He was Svidler was also member of Alexeyenko's team for the candidates preparation. So definitely a big theoretical debate. And on the other board, wow, Magnus actually says, I'm not listening to Peter. He mentioned E4, D4 as nice options. Let me go C4 then.
He has been using this a lot lately, and especially he also went for this in his quarterfinal match. Now Artemiev having a think how he wants to react to the English opening, whether he's going to play E5 or not. We'll see. But Peter, I think he goes for E5. The Jan Esipienko matchup is definitely going to be a big theoretical fight. And Jan sticks to the line with Rook E1. If we just switch back to that, Rook E1, A5 on the board, and H3 taking control of the G4 square. So no Bishop G4, no Knight G4. And Black responds with H6, also taking away the opportunity for White to go Bishop G5.
Yes, basically after seeing how Andre demolished Levon in the last game of the preliminaries with this Knight G4 idea, yeah, and then getting F7, F5 in, I think it's automatic that you kind of tell your player like to Jan that his seconds, I believe that you just avoid knight g4. But look at this, Andrei insists. He goes now for bishop e6, bishop b5, knight d7, and he does want to play f7, f5. He wants to, first of all, I think, surprise Jan, because this knight d7 option is probably quite a rare line. And also trying to put pressure. Yeah, he doesn't want to play a really slow game. He's looking for counter chances. It's going to be a very, very interesting. But no, after knight f1, d5, okay, this is another idea behind knight d7. It just shows that how big expert Andrei is.
And he's blitzing it out, so he's definitely prepared for this. He knows one of Jan's strength is to put pressure on the clock, and Andrei is saying, you know what, I have come with my opening preparation and you're not going to get the upper hand on the clock. I also really like how he's going for the most direct, most combative lines, not fearing the fact that Jan is a specialist in positions like that. Peter, now usually in these positions, we know that once black gets a nice d5 break, he solves his problem. After d5, could not white have just traded and gone for the line where you take the pawn, take the knight, and get the pawn on e5? Or is it again the bishop f2 sacrifice that makes it impossible?
Yes, I think exactly the same. Yeah, that after d5, after e d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes c6. Okay, black can basically choose even b takes c6. Let's take first with the bishop. And then after knight e5, again, this takes, rook takes, bishop takes f2 check, king f2, queen f6. Trick works in black's favor, so white loses the rook. That's why the pawn on d5 is indirectly protected. The big question is, however, that now that white is reinforcing his position with knight g3, rook e8 played, now of course e5 pawn is already protected. The big question is also that where does this knight on d7 go to? Yeah, it's not the most common place of the knight. Also, white's bishop on b5 in the Italian is not very common. It almost feels like some kind of a anti-Berlin more with the bishop on b5. Jan going for bishop e3, and after bishop takes e3, rook takes e3, d takes e4, Andrei releases the tension. Okay, my feeling is that usually if you from the white side maintain the tension and you force or provoke black to release the tension, then usually it's kind of good news for white. It usually gives a little bit the more comfortable position, but also a very solid structure for black. So the big question now for Jan, yeah, does he want to take d4 and play for some microscopic advantages, or does he even maybe take on c6? Yeah, there is also this option of doubling now the pawns and then maybe to take on e4 and try to play this structure. However, black's pieces are quite nicely placed. Looks actually quite reasonable for black. If you don't take on, yeah, and Jan takes on c6, because I wanted to show one thing. The very first thing that came to my mind, that if white captures d takes e4, then maybe black will play the move knight cb8. It might look strange at first, but actually you can just go to b8, then play the move c6, get queen c7 out, knight will jump to a6, and you get a very harmonious position. So there is simply no reason to be afraid of that from black side. And yeah, Jan decides to double the pawns, and he's still thinking how to recapture now e4.
So bishop c6, b takes e6. And I was just wondering, Peter, black also had the opportunity to consider taking the knight on f3 instead of the bishop on c6, because this just looks like you've ruined your pawn structure.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very strange, but I do believe that, you know, this bishop on e6, knight on d7 is very, very nicely set for black. Black's pawn on a5 is also wonderful because he can go a5, a4, fixing white's pawns on a2 and b2. So they are both vulnerable. Knight on g3 is a little bit far from action. Knight from f3 is also a little bit far. Yeah, a4 on the board. I believe that we can say that black has solved all his opening problems. I mean, there is just no reason to be worried at all for black.
Well, so Andrei Asipenko looking strong and confident in his first game against Ian Nepomniachtchi. Peter, we'll come back to this. Let's do an opening take of the other big matchup, Magnus Carlsen taking on Artemiev with the white pieces in game one.
Yeah, this is little bit the thing that I was mentioning. Yeah, that Vladislav usually always avoids the real theoretical clash. For example, after g3, c4, e5, g3, now the main fashionable discussion is after c6, very direct play, very, very difficult for white to prove any advantage. Also, there are different move orders. Also inside knight f6, bishop g2, c6 is very fashionable. There are all kinds of new lines with bishop c5 also. But this is all not the territory Vladislav likes. He likes to play structure of positions. However, by playing structure here with knight c6, I think this is something of a very, very nice and very good news for white. You know, there is no opening pressure. You know exactly that you are slightly more comfortable. The game is kind of very healthy. And castle, d6, d4 on the board. I mean, I'm never a big fan of such positions from the black side. On the other hand, I know very well that they're absolutely playable. And there is objectively nothing wrong with them. However, I would be playing every time c4 if I would know that this position is guaranteed for me.
You know, Peter, in such kind of positions, if I'm playing black, it's always the question, how do you react to d4? Do you trade on d4 or do you give white the option to go d5? And in general, I feel if white does get this position with pushing the pawn on d5, very often this b4, c5 stuff comes into play. And I'm wondering, what is the right way for black to react to the situation in the center? I would go for a pawn trade here and take on d4 and maybe a move like rook e8 to develop. What do you think should be done by Artemiev?
Well, Vladislav is listening to you, yeah. Yeah, he goes e4 on the board. It's a very, very difficult question because I think that black also would love to keep the tension, but he was not really having useful moves. So yeah, he goes rook e8. I think one of the points is that if black could, for example, get the bishop out to f5 and get knight e4 in, get these two moves in and trade the light pieces. Yeah, I mean, one pair of knights. And even in dream scenario, the light square bishop, then his bishop on g7 would be wonderful. And from Magnus's side, from white side, the aim is not to stop that. Yeah, if you can somehow keep this idea under control, for example, the move h3 to me looks like a very, very natural reaction with the idea that after bishop f5, I want to go g4 immediately, kicking away the bishop so that I get control of the e4 square.
That's actually quite deep and prophylactic, and it's on the board. Magnus playing like Peter Leko here. He plays the move h3, anticipating bishop f5 and this idea of knight trade because white has more space. When white has more space, black wants to trade more pieces to make life easier. So Magnus saying, I'm not going to let you make your life so easily. And h3 on the board, bishop f5 to be met by g4. So still some opening development issues to be solved here by Artemiev. Peter, let's move on to the Andrei Asipienko game because lots of developments there. White's knight has found his way onto f5. Black played a4, got the queen on c5. Maybe we take it from where we left it.
Yes, so it was b takes c6, d takes e4, a4. Yeah, this fixing is the key idea from black. As I mentioned already, the pawn on a2 is really vulnerable. The bishop on e6 is wonderfully eyeing the pawn on a2, and white will never be able to bring his rook from a1 into play. So that's why Jan actually tries to disrupt black's play. Queen c2, queen e7, knight f5 is played immediately. And after queen c5, the move knight f3 to h4, you know, at first sight, it might look like this is an aggressive move. My feeling is that it's more based on trying to, scare the opponent and try to create some counterplay. But I'm not really liking this. I mean, white doesn't have enough pieces to attack. Black has a very healthy position with this bishop e6, knight d7 construction. Andrei also very, very nicely moves his king to h7. Getting ready to
stepping the threat of rook g3 as well, because rook g3 would create pressure on g7 as well as h6. Exactly,
yes. So basically black is anyway settling to play g6, and now the move rook g3 can be met by g6 nicely. The pawn on h6 is covered. Now the question is there some kind of a combination with queen d2 and then eyeing the h6 pawn and g takes f5 try to be answered by ef5? However, I don't believe in
Queen
such.
d5, queen d5, rook d3. So bishop d5.
Yeah, just bishop d5, and I don't believe in white's attack. Jan is trying to be smart. I mean, he tries with queen d2. Now rook g6 is definitely a threat. But the big question is that really after g6, does he have a very special solution? I'm not sure if any tactic is really working.
And it's interesting, Asipianko's taken less time than Jan. That's not something we get to see every day, where it's Jan Nepomniachtchi who's behind on the clock. He goes back queen f8, so not going into these skirmishes with g6. Queen f8, still, of course, eyeing the move g6. But Peter, is it also with the idea that you want to get your knight to c5?
Yeah, well, and also definitely he wants to play g6, but not to bother calculating this knight takes h6 sacrifices. I mean, especially against Jan, you know that he's very dangerous, very, very creative. Besides, the queen very nicely belongs to f8. Black already has achieved everything, and white has not compromised his position with the move knight fc to h4. Yeah, because if this knight is not really creating any attack, then actually it will have to be moved back. But how do you move back? Because also the knight on f5 doesn't have a nice route backwards, since the rook on e3 is standing in its way. I feel like, you know, and still this problem of hitting the a2 pawn, I think that black is just perfectly fine, maybe even better. And we see that how important it is to have a very, very good preparation, because that's the only way how you can stop Jan. I mean, Andrei showed great preparation, gets up on the clock, and feels quite comfortable.
I think it's the first time that we're seeing Jan Nepomniachtchi come out of the opening a little troubled, still black doing well here. And Peter, not just you, our evaluation bar seems to confirm that black's position is absolutely fine, but it is still very dynamic. So both sides need to be careful. Jan behind on the clock. And that's kind of ironic, because this is the first time we're seeing him not bullet out literally his moves. Usually by now he's got about 17 minutes in the clock, and plays slow to think. And that's when he's finding himself in most trouble.
Yeah, but there is also a reason for him to think, because he's not so comfortable. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, people are kind of misinterpreting that. Yeah, Jan is hurrying. I mean, he hurries because he's very confident and he enjoys his position. Now that he doesn't have a clear plan, there are no moves that he can make automatically. Just let me mention one thing, because I was kind of feeling understanding the reason why g6 was not played immediately. I mean, after g6, there are all kinds of rook d3 moves, for example, immediately hitting the h6 pawn. And after g takes f5, for example, white has the possibility to sacrifice the rook on d7, rook d7, bishop takes d7, queen d7. And this looks like a very, very unpleasant position. I mean, definitely a dream scenario for white, when he feels that otherwise he strategically may be worse, but here he gets good play. So that was the very nice tactical idea of Jan. Of course, Andrei immediately maybe seeing or just feeling, yeah, sensing that, okay, no, of course, Jan wants something. I don't want to let this happen. And after queen f8, the move c3, c4 is very, very interesting. I mean, it also shows that Jan feels the pressure and he feels that he needs to do something special. And the move c4 is quite interesting.
Yeah, you know, after the move c4, I'm surprised with this decision to go. Of course, bishop into c4 is impossible. The knight on d7 is hanging. And Andrei decided to go knight b6 and not knight c5. Is he just simply saying that after knight b6, you can't defend the c4 pawn, and queen c3 on the board, so putting counter pressure on e5? But this just means that actually now black can go knight takes c4, win a pawn. Where's white's compensation?
Yeah, there is just no compensation at all. I mean, the knight on h4 is completely out of the game. A knight on g6 is out of the game. White has lost the pawn. I mean, everything that could go wrong went completely wrong. I mean, Jan is clearly somehow in his thoughts completely distracted. I don't feel like he was able to concentrate on the game at all, because all his decisions were very, very emotional, but they did not comply with the demands of the position. Yeah, and those things are very dangerous. Now Andrei just have to keep his nerves, and he can actually get a very, very nice lead with the black pieces. On the other hand, we know how resourceful Jan is, and he has been in trouble already. He is able to find all kinds of food in the eggs, so it's very, very far to say that he will lose this game, but he's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Peter. I think the Jan we've been seeing so far, very different from what we've seen in this game one. And probably that has a lot to do with the situation of the board. All right, Peter, let's go to to our other game, Magnus against Artemiev. A structural change, a decision has been taken in the center. Magnus decides to fix it with c5, clearly indicating that he's going to start the pawn storm on the queen side with plans like b4, a4, b5, trying to target the d5 pawn, eventually open up the g2 knight. While that gives a clear plan to white, what is Artemiev's way forward?
Yeah, this is a very, very specific structure. I feel that in general, it suits Vladislav's style perfectly because he's some kind of a Slav player. So he should be feeling quite comfortable in this structure. I'm not such a big expert. We see the engine bar. The engine bar, for some reason, and it's quite shockingly, saying that black is perfectly fine and even maybe more comfortable. This gives me the feeling that, because if I would look at the position, I would think like, okay, it's roughly equal. Yes, I understand that with the bishop on g2, this construction, of course, c6, d5 is wonderful, yeah, because this bishop is completely locked, while black's bishop on g7 puts pressure on the d4 pawn. Certainly, if black gets some knight e4 in at the right moment, then it would be wonderful. However, white is still controlling this square. White is kind of developed. So yes, I do agree that black is probably fine, but I would not feel that black is any better.
Very interesting. What is the ideas that come to your mind? Because like you mentioned, a specific structure, c5, what kind of moves can black, okay, Artemiev answers, he says he really wants to dissolve the tension, even if it means by putting that knight on e4 and creating a weakness currently because of the pawn on h3. He's not giving up the pawn.
But hang on, I'm not liking this because maybe I can simply take with the bishop. I mean, it's a surprise, but bishop e4, d4, knight e4, giving up this bishop, but this knight going to d6. And basically, if my knight lands on d6, then I don't mind losing the h3 pawn. Wow, I mean, I'm really shocked and surprised that Vladislav let this happen so easily.
Let's take a look at that line, Peter. Bishop e4, d4, knight e4, bishop h3. Do you go knight d6 immediately?
Yes, definitely, immediately, before you create some counterplay on the light squares. Knight to d6, the other knight to c3, and I have some overwhelmingly dominant position with my...
All right, but wait up, Peter, because is knight into e8 a threat? Because I have queen d5, and I don't see a direct way for you to fight the mate. So can I actually challenge your knight by knight f5, or am I hallucinating?
Okay, please go ahead. You go knight f5.
That reaction is definite to I am hallucinating here.
No, you are not hallucinating at all. I think knight f5 is a brilliant move, and you have to you have to play the move because it's absolutely correct. Yeah, that knight takes e8 runs into this counterplay with queen d5, and I have no chance of stopping
f3, queen f3, and you still can't fight the mate, right?
Yeah, and okay, if already f3, I have to play. No, it's clear that something is wrong. So after knight f5, I have to play a good move. I really have to play a good move, and maybe I have to play queen d2. Maybe I just have to play queen d2. But of course, then this whole operation with knight f5 was very, very successful for you.
Yeah, maybe I can at least take the knight on d6 and maybe make a move like queen f6 and the game goes on. It's not as big a disaster as it would be if white's knight could be posted on d6.
Exactly. It's completely double-edged. I mean, after knight f5, I don't feel that I'm better. So let me think after bishop takes h3 that can I somehow start with a different move order? But I really wanted to play knight d6. That was the whole point. I do have knight g5, but it doesn't feel like the right direction. Okay. This is a wonderful, I mean, you are on fire, yeah, with this knight d6, knight f5.
It's been a tough day, Peter. It's nice to hear that from you.
Yeah, definitely. But hang on, I know I cannot because king h2, you just go, you have bishop g4.
Maybe you start with it then, Peter. Maybe you...
No, I can try it maybe here, but I mean, this is still very, very messy. I'm not feeling comfortable with white. No. Then let me try to find another alternative. But this one looked like in the spirit. If not this, then okay, let's take the most simple, like takes, and we go knight c3. This is the other option that I have.
So in this position, now that you're threatening to take e4, does black want to take on d4 and trade that pawn? That just makes me feel that the knight on d6 then would be so strong. For example, queen d4, you trade the queens and then you take knight e4. And I'm not loving black's position. Yes, you can pick up the pawn on b2, but rook b1, knight d6 coming in, it looks very scary.
Yes, it looks very, very scary. Basically, it means I think that you will have to play the move f5. You have to play f5, but then white has this queen b3 check, because of course, if black somehow gets time to develop the bishop to e6, he will have a wonderful position. So it's everything move per move. Queen b3 check, and then some quick rook a d1, maybe opening up with f3. Well, a lot to calculate. I perfectly understand both sides, that why they are spending so much time. And look at this, Artemiev is down to 5.5 minutes, and now Magnus is also, and we are just move 13 or 14.
Wow. So a very critical moment in the game, which will set the tone for what's to come up. This is exactly what makes these players great. They know the moment they need to slow down and think and calculate. So Magnus looking at these trades and trying to evaluate. We'll come back to this. Meanwhile, lots has happened on the other board, Peter. In our current position, Andrei Asipienko has an extra pawn, but the king is a bit weakened. Peter, let's take it from the moment we left it and see how we got here and your take on the current position then.
Yeah, knight b6. Here also, after knight b6, we see how important it was for black to get this pawn to a4, because if white would be able to play b3, everything would be perfect. But he's not in time. And so Jan gives up the pawn, plays rook e1, rook b8, and okay, now all these kind of things are quite natural. Yeah, black will win a pawn. Yeah, with knight b5, he's protecting his c7 pawn. b3 pawn will fall any moment, so Jan is bringing back his knights. Takes, queen c5, f6 on the board, rook e2, and yeah, Jan definitely wants to force black to capture on c5. Yeah, that's why the move rook e2 to go rook d2 and then queen c5, rook c5, putting the pressure on the knight and on the pawn and trying to survive. But I do see action in the other game, and I think that there we have much more dramatic situation. Magnus actually opted for this bishop e4, d4, knight e4, and now I'm wondering, what are we missing? Because this bishop ac, knight d6, knight f5 really had a big impact on me.
Your line on the board. So Magnus says, I'll give up my fiancé shadow bishop, which is not usual. Normally you really want to hold on to that bishop on g2, but he's also vying the d6 square for the knight. And look at this, Artemiev does not take on h3, but immediately goes knight f5, stopping knight d6.
Yeah, he goes knight f5, but now exactly this was the position that I had in front of my eyes, that I would be very, very happy with this, that, you know, seemingly I have given up the bishop on g2 and I'm not even winning a pawn because you can capture the d4, but suddenly white's light pieces, minor pieces are just so powerful, entering into black's camp. Also the move bishop g5 is there, very, very unpleasant. For example, after any capture on d4, bishop g5 might hurt big time. I mean, yeah, because even there almost I thought, like, you know, not that I blunder some tactics like this, but knight from g5 protects the f3 square, so there is no fork with knight f3. Yeah, it's maybe some misjudgment by Vladislav, and he's done to 3.5 minutes. It will, and he goes bishop e6. It's a clear sign of he's trying to bail out, but then his whole plan backfired.
And it looks like Magnus is doing everything right, because we can see the bar steadily rising in white's favor. Peter, I'm very curious to see what we might have missed for bishop h3, because that idea looks so interesting with knight d6, knight f5. And maybe our producer Tad or the chat can tell us what was the repetition and why Artemiev decided to not go for the line where he could have captured on h3. Bishop e6 on the board. Currently, white has got an extra pawn. Black is putting pressure on the d4 pawn, has got the two bishops, but it's really not about any of that, but the d6 square, the big hole in black's position. And it looks like Magnus has got a dream position out of the opening. Peter, we'll come back to this. He goes bishop e5, so trying to trade off black's active dark squared bishop. You never want to take on e5, because after bishop e5, d takes e5, knight f6 becomes a cruel threat on the board. And if you make a move like f6, avoiding a trade, then you kill your own bishop. Peter, reasons to be happy about this move? Although I do notice the eval bar isn't impressed.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, yeah, now it's very comfortable for Magnus, because he just wants to stabilize his advantage. He feels like, you know, he took the courage taking with the bishop on e4. Yeah, that was kind of a big decision, a tough decision, but he took it, and it worked out. Now after bishop e5, no matter what black will do, he will be suffering, he will be worse. And that's exactly what Magnus needs. Yeah, stable advantage with this time advantage together can actually bring a very simple point. Artem in a lot of trouble, and we are being told by our producer Tadeusz that he should have played like.
And our chat as well, Peter. Our chat is very helpful as well. They're informing that bishop h3 was the way to go for black. It's interesting because when you are looking at the eval bar, even in this position, it said that white's doing fine. Not sure what's the best way for white forward, and if this line knight d6, knight f5 is correct, it looks really nice because knight e8 runs into queen d5 mating attack. But we are being informed by our chat and our producer that bishop h3 would have kept the game going in a good manner for Artemiev, and knight f5 might be that point which he'll come to regret. Peter, we'll come back to this game. Should we get an update on the other one?
Yeah, the other one is going massively in Andrei's favor. After this move, rook e2, and now we understand immediately why engines did not like this move, rook e2, because it allowed this nice little tactics. You know, if you are playing from the black side and you are presented with this choice, you are so happy with rook a1. Black is destroying white's kind of blockade and his hope of what he's trying to achieve. Yeah, because let's just make a pass move, like for example king g7 or not, okay, h5, whatever. White plays the move rook d2, queen takes c5, rook c5, and white has perfect compensation. The pawn on c7 is eternally weak, white's rook is active, and everything is more or less under control given the problems. But this rook e1 move destroys white's fortress on the c5 square. White is unable to capture on a1 because then he loses the queen. After queen takes d6, black takes first, rook takes c1 check, and wins material and wins the game. So there was nothing else than to play the move king h2, after which black can capture on c1, and after queen c1 he gets the chance to push his pawn from c7 to c5 with these incredible minor pieces. I mean, he has the chance to go knight d4, he has the chance to just keep on pushing. It almost feels like a winning advantage.
This is incredible stuff and quite flawlessly played by Esipienko when it comes to tactics, spotting this rook a1, absolute sharpness on the board, and he continues to gain on the advantage. Rook e3 played, attacking that bishop. Does black just keep on marching forward with the pawn? Does he go c4 now?
Well, but after c4 there is knight d2. Yeah, that's probably the hope for Jan. Yeah, because suddenly I'm targeting both pieces and you are not able to bring your knight to the game. I think maybe you should refrain from it. Maybe it's still good, but if I have the advantage, I would just like to, you know, avoid any kind of tricks. But c4 on the board, and probably Andrei says that, you know, I have knight d4, and after knight takes c4, I'm gonna pin you with queen c5, and rook c3, rook c8 might win material. That's very, very important line. Yeah, because if white can't play like this, then of course c4 is just very strong. Yeah, knight d2 on the board.
Is there any idea, like in that line, Peter, that you were mentioning knight d4, knight takes c4? Is queen a3 an option so that queen c4 can be met by queen e7?
But I have
queen a7.
No, queen a7.
Queen a7. Queen a7 is the move.
Yes, yeah. But then yes, queen a7 and it works perfectly. Yeah, wow. I mean, okay, so it's very, very tactical. I guess that.
But the knight does get stuck. I mean, even in that line after knight c4, knight d4, queen a3, knight a3, is there a way for black to actually try and win that knight with? Okay, but there's rook a8, knight b5 in that position. Let's just show that.
Yes, I mean, okay, in any case, white should be very, very relieved because I also have the b1 square. Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine that this knight is getting trapped.
And did you see that, Peter? Andrei Esipienko shaking his head like he feels that it might be a miss by him. And as you mentioned, c4 allows this target, which black should probably refrain from hurrying, needed to probably just fall back with the bishop, but a very tempting move, c4. And this could be the chance that Jan's been waiting for. Andrei Esipienko continuously shaking his head at the position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he got careless. I mean, he was probably too euphoric, thinking like, okay, the position wins by itself. But I immediately sense that even if the move c4 is fine, in a rapid play, there is just no reason to do that. Yeah, I mean, just reinforce your position. You have such an incredibly dominant position. Just knight d4, then you can even bring back the bishop to e6. You just stabilize the position, and white is not really able to do anything. I mean, white is really dominated. After c4, knight d2, this is and queen b4 now on the board. This gets tactical, and if it's tactical, we know that Jan is extremely sharp and very tricky.
So what does he take on b3 and try and activate the queen from c6? But then you have to really calculate, because b2, the pawn is just queening. I mean, if you take on b3, you have to be sure that your queen is coming into play with a drastic effect.
Yes, well, I mean, okay, he has time to calculate. So of course he will only
queen d7. And I just want to point out king g8, for example, there's knight h5, knight f5 stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, then white might be winning even. I don't know. It looks very scary, at least. Rook is joining the battle. So, of course, after queen d7 check, you go to h8.
And can white try the same idea? But one second, maybe you start with queen f7, hitting
yes,
f6.
Yes. This was the line that I kind of felt from the beginning. Yeah, that this is crucial. I'm starting queen f6. I'm also eyeing actually some move like rook b3 just in case. Also very nice to know that I have it in the pocket. I don't know. This is certainly not something I like from black side, to go for such adventures.
This is getting super messy, and now Jan having a think, and it's all about. But Peter, he doesn't take that long, and instead of taking on b3, I don't know if he saw an immediate refutation to this line with queen c6, but he decides to create play with rook f3. It also has a direct threat on the f6 pawn and keeps the idea of knight takes b3 alive. We do have an update, apparently. Tad, our producer, is mentioning that Magnus is doing extremely well in his game. Peter, let's get an update on that.
Yeah, well, I kept an eye on the game, and when I saw that after bishop e5, black played the move b6, it's kind of some kind of a capitulation. I mean, it feels like he knows that he doesn't have any compensation. And okay, the rest for a caliber of Magnus, I think, yeah, with all this time advantage and a knight bd6 on the board, it's a total hell for black. I mean, pawn down, bad position. Now even he might lose on the spot. That's the reason why Engine Bar is so euphoric.
And Artemiev down to 20 seconds with a very difficult position against Magnus. A knight d6 on the board, attacking the rook, attacking the bishop on d5. Peter, if you take the bishop on e4, then you give a check and you just pin that bishop and win it. You pin and win. Instead, he goes for rook e5, trying to keep things together. But this can allow knight f5. And if you take rook f5, the other knight jumps into d5, onto d6.
Yeah, to d6 first. You can even include queen d4 check. I mean, this is just game over. I mean, it's really game over. Artemiev, I think the reason why he's not resigning, because he doesn't have time to resign. He only has few seconds left. Yeah, queen d4, f6, knight d6, and it's over.
We might be seeing a resignation from Artemiev any moment. He's down a pawn, but that's least of his trouble. Look at the pawn structure. Look at that king on g7, white's knight on d6 dominating. And Peter, it all comes down to that trade on e4 that happened, and white managed to get knight e4. A very critical moment that might have been, instead of taking on h3, black decided to go knight f5. This current position does look busted for black. We'll stick around with this game for a little bit more. Wow, rook e5. I don't think it's going to be too long.
Yeah, now after queen e5, queen f6, knight f5 is a check with hitting the third pawn. And okay, white has a winning position plus 3 extra pawns. So yeah, there is no intrigue in this
You can also go queen c7, and after king g6, you go queen c6, knight e7.
Yeah, that's also a very nice, elegant way. The big question is, like, does Magnus want to be fancy? Maybe he just wants to trade and then go knight d4, and also it's resignable. But yeah, queen c7 is very tempting.
We want to see queen c7 on the board, Peter.
Okay, queen c7, black will anyway play the move king f8, so he will not fall for some cheapo.
And then I'll have to move the rook. And if you take on f5, then take on c6. Yeah,
no, okay. I mean, basically, I think black can only do himself one favor to resign, because this is, I mean, there is just no point in playing this position with 30 seconds on the board, unless you want to calm yourself down. You have already mentally given up on the game and you are just trying to calm yourself down.
Well, you know, the position's really bad when Peter suggests the best move is to resign. King f7 on the board. Magnus just calculating the subtleties of how he wants to finish this off. So many tempting options. Knight d6, queen c7, just simply trade. But I don't believe he's going to go for the trade somehow. I don't believe that he's going to go for the endgame here.
Well, now it's difficult to say because he's spending way too much time. Like, he knows that queen c7 is winning, queen f6 is winning, and he kind of, he goes for your move, queen
Goes
c7.
for queen c7. It's so tempting because let's just point out the tactics that we were looking at, Peter. King f8, like you said, was the only move. If king g6, queen c6, and queen c6, knight e7 would win big material, the house. And he goes king f8. And now, as you were discussing, rook e1 played on the board. You simply move away from queen a1. If queen f5, amongst other things, you simply take on c6. Yeah,
this is just over. I mean, black has to play the move rook e8. He needs to trade off white's rook, but I mean, okay, every trade is favoring white. It's completely lost. I mean, I feel like maybe because this is just impossible not to see a win for Magnus, and the other game is heating up, maybe we should jump there.
He plays queen c3. All right, we can. If you
hang on, I mean, this will be over in 2 moves. I mean, I can't really believe that this game.
There has to be a mate somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, or just I mean, okay, white is so dominating everything.
Yeah, I'm surprised Artemiev keeps it going. Well, he is trying. Queen c6 on the board, queen c3 on the board. You can't take on c6 because queen e1 would be a check.
No, but actually you can. I mean, queen takes c6, queen e1, king g2, because you stopped queen e4 check. The rook is hanging, and queen f. I mean, it's also completely winning.
Actually, this might be the fastest way to it, to win the position, is to sacrifice it. Magnus has too many tempting options and is just trying to find the one that wraps things up the quickest.
Yes, definitely.
The only thing he needs to watch out for is Peter not to go rook e7, and let's just show why.
Yeah, that is quite a big argument against it. Yeah.
And this is the only thing. Do not make a move with the rook up. He goes for your line, queen c6, a stylish way to finish. Give up the rook, but as queen e4 is under control, black's king is absolutely busted in the position. And Peter, we can probably just stick on for a few more seconds because this game will wrap up any moment.
Yeah, now it's even black's only move. I even don't know where do you put this rook. Rook a7 is maybe the only move. 4 seconds
to Artemiev. He needs to make a move or he just loses on time. With 1 second, queen, rook to a7.
Yeah, rook a7. It was basically the only move. Yeah, now queen f6, but he's losing everything. Now queen h8 check, queen takes h7, and then collecting the rook, among others, but anything really.
All right, this is just depressing to look at. I think we can just call this a win for Magnus. Peter, let's move on to the other one. Lots of drama there. And
yeah, knight h5, the move that you have called out, and we have been speaking about that the king should never go to g8.
That is amazing stuff. Peter, should we just quickly take it from where we left? Because now we see Jan Nepomniachtchi is completely winning.
Yes, rook f3, king g7, knight takes b3, and he first provoked this king to g7, now takes rook d3. Andre closed the d file, but allowed queen c7 check, and with king g8, he fell into knight h5.
Unbelievable. And the point is the f6 pawn is hanging, queen g7, a massive mating threat. If you take on h5, rook g3 would be game over. Peter, let's just show that. Rook g3, you go king to f8 and you go rook g7. Is that the way to go?
Yeah, it looks like it is. Yeah, because now queen f7 checkmate is unavoidable. I mean, what an incredible turn of events. And I think Andre will go simply crazy because he had everything under control. He had dream scenario. He was way up on the clock. He was dominating the game, playing a very nice game. And then just with this c4 move, and after c4, he still felt like he needs to play for a win because he owns it to himself. His position was so winning. And then allowing all this counterplay against Jan, you should never do that.
And Peter, look at the frustration with Andre. He played a flawless game, absolutely, from start until just about now, and allowing this. It all started with that move c4, which gave Jan an opportunity to try and build his own play. And Peter, you had spotted it that Jan needs to, that Andre Asipienko needs to not hurry with that move. And after this, what we have, he's gone queen b7 directly. No, knight h5 on the board, and queen b7, knight f6. King h8. Where does he just pick up the e5 pawn as well now?
Yeah, probably now he just takes on e5. Yeah, and the knight is hanging. All kinds of discover checks are threatened. I mean, yeah, queen e5 on the board. And Andre down to 30 seconds as well, but maybe there is anyway no medicine already.
This is an insane turnaround, Peter. And I think Jan also knew that the game had gone completely wrong for him. He almost looked like, giving up on the position that he had, completely disinterested. And then an opportunity out of nowhere. And these kind of positions, Jan Nepomniachtchi does not mess up.
Yeah, but you should never be fooled by Jan's, look that it seems like he's not interested. He's just pretending not to be interested. Yeah, he's waiting for the golden opportunity. I have played with him also many blitz games in the training camps that I thought like, okay, I'm completely winning. And a few moves later, I was already lost. Yeah, it's very tricky. Now he goes queen f4, starting queen h6 checkmate.
And rook d7, rook h7 ideas. Do not forget rook coming into d7, and that would be an invasion that would be impossible for Andre to handle. Queen f4, attacking h6, g5 on the board. Peter, queen f5 now?
Yes, queen f5. I mean, it's very nice that this pawn is still too far away. Now rook d7 is still the deadly threat. Then with rook h7, queen h7 checkmate. Queen c7 check can be very nicely answered by g3. That's also very important. Yeah, queen c7 check, g3 on the board, and there is no defense.
Suddenly everything in the position works in Jan's favor. The pawn on b3 is one move too short. That was an extra pawn. That was the biggest strength in Andre's position. The king on h2, absolutely safe. All the pieces playing beautifully. Knight e5, Peter, you're pointing out a brilliant finish. Knight e5 on the board, rook d7, cutting off that queen on c7 from defending h7. Jan is not going to miss this one.
Yeah, definitely not. Now he's absolutely, however, correct not to blitz it immediately. He has 2.5 minutes. He's about to win the game, so he needs to take some time. And rook d7 seems to just finish it off.
Knight e5, that is a beautiful finish. Jan just looking and making sure there's nothing that he's missing. Andre Asipienko, you can see the disappointment. This was a golden opportunity with the black pieces to start with a big win, and everything went according to Asipienko's plan. He got a dream position out of the opening, won an extra pawn, was up on the clock, and now this is pretty much game over after rook d7.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm very happy that Jan is taking his time, but now a little bit he's taking too much time. What are we missing after rook d7? Knight d7 is impossible. Queen takes d7 doesn't seem to help at all because, I mean, the queen is threatening to win the rook. The only question was like after knight d7, I think this is what Jan is calculating, that queen d7, b2. Suddenly, do you win the rook or not? And Jan actually goes for rook c3.
Oh, wow. Okay, so rook c3, the game goes on. The game goes on. The line that you were pointing out was the one that probably Jan felt a little unsure about. Black sidesteps with the queen. He needs to make sure the h7 square is covered. Knight d5 continues to put pressure. Peter, you've got to also defend the e5 knight. Queen g7, rook c7, and 1 second. Is Asipienko back in the game? Something is very wrong with what Jan has just played.
Well, rook f8. Oh my God. I mean, what a turnaround.
What is going on here?
Jan cannot keep the tension. Yeah, that's the problem, because okay, when you are so much up on the clock, you actually feel like, okay, I blundered something, but let's keep the complications. Okay, rook c8 is good that he has rook c8. He needs to keep the queens on the board.
And Jan keeping up his poker face. It looks like he's still confident about his position. He still feels that he's got all the chances here. But now, all right, so he doesn't trade with rook c8, queen c8, avoids all of that and falls back with the knight to d7. Andre Asipienko down to 12 seconds now.
Yeah, this knight d7 was a key move, in fact, because knight d7 after rook takes f8, he wants to capture with the queen on f8. Yeah, that's I think the idea, because he's hitting on f2. You cannot take the knight. Okay, what is this? Maybe this knight endgame is nevertheless winning for white. Yeah, you are coming with the king, coming back with... Maybe, yeah, I don't know if really then he wants to trade the queens or not. But I assume that, yeah, because knight takes f8, anyway, white has e4, e5, and then the queen will always guard the b1 square. It's kind of hard to... But what a drama. It's so difficult to even commentate on, because it looked like it's over. I mean, rook d7 and game over, and all this turnaround again.
It's not over till it's over, like they say. But this has been just a complete roller coaster of a game. Meanwhile, Magnus
hang on, Tanya. There is also this incredible line with queen takes d7, but queen takes d7, queen d7, rook f8, king g7 works in black's favor.
Yeah, because the knight is too far. Let's just.
Yeah,
king
well,
A7,
no,
of course
actually, you
not,
know,
but king G7.
yes, that you can just go king g7 and you win. So after knight d7.
And rook g8, you go king f7. So you just keep on with it.
Yeah, you just keep on. And yeah, rook f8, queen f8 on the board. We might be
So
seeing
queen
this
D-
end game.
So, Peter, after queen takes d7, does black want to repeat with queen f2, or do you go b2 and get ambitious?
Well, I mean, you definitely don't go queen d7 to start with, yeah, because you already have perpetual check. So I'm actually assuming a trade on f8, king g2, and then b2, knight c3, and try to squeeze this end. No, Jan goes queen d7. What?
Okay, wait, queen f2 is just a draw, but even, all right, I don't know what was going on after b2, but he decided to go for this line, and he always has the option. And Jan shaking his head and smiling a little bit. And I think this is just a bailout. I think he just wants this game to end.
Yeah, but this is kind of really shocking. What are we missing? Okay, now there is nothing to talk about because yeah, after b2, anyway, white gives millions of checks and it's draw is draw. I want to just very quickly come back to this position that why he couldn't.
Wow.
Why did Jan feel like this is not worth a try? I mean, b2, knight c3, black will come with the knight, white comes with the king. And okay, knight d4, he's just in time to get this. This is the construction, and then he's threatening b1 queen. So this means that actually after knight e6, white will need to block the pawn with b1, and then maybe Jan didn't believe in it that with this passive knight, then okay, black will come with his king very quickly. Then what are his winning chances? Anyway, probably it's drawish, but now I understand then his decision.
Peter, you understand, but I think most of us are just gobsmacked with this game that we've seen. And I really want to go back. And because we've got a couple of minutes, Magnus Carlsen did win his first game against Artemiev. And that one was quite a blowout by Magnus. Not much to analyze there. Peter, this one was so exciting. Let's do a little play-by-play and look at some of the variations.
Yes, okay, let's just very quickly go back to the very first critical moment when he, after rook e3, we thought like Andrei has everything under control, he's pawn up, he has the better position, he can just put the knight on d4 and enjoy slowly, try to grind out this technical win. Maybe even just retreating with the bishop immediately to e6, it's even simpler not to determine the knight's position yet. So a very, very big chance for Andrei. He was also up on the clock. But then suddenly things escalated. It all started with this move c4, knight d2. c4 is probably not an objective big mistake, but it brings the direction into a completely wrong turn because now black still felt like, you know, he was winning before. He wants to prove that he can still play for a win. And now things really escalate because of this feeling. After queen before rook f3, Jan immediately grabs his chance hitting on f6 pawn. King g7, knight b3, cb3, rook d3, trying to threaten rook d7 check. And now we see that here black made some terrible mistake with knight d4, queen c7 check, king g8, which run into knight h5, and it looked like it's game over. White is going to checkmate black. Andrei was trying to put up heroic defense with queen b7, knight f6 check, king h8, queen takes e5. It still looks completely over. Knight c6, queen f4 also looks very natural, threatening mate on h6, g5, queen f5, queen c7 check, g3, and knight e5. Now we reach this critical position that we have been debating on. And the very big question was why Jan did not play the move rook d7.
I think it was a line that you were looking at, Peter, that after you do win the queen, black has this pawn on b2. And if white isn't winning the rook with checks, then maybe black has enough counterplay. For example, queen d7. Let's just point out the line with knight d7. You take on d7, you sack the queen, and you go b2. And maybe it's not so easy now for white to actually win the rook. All right, so definitely not king h7 because you immediately go queen a7 and pick up the rook. So got to be careful about that. So black has to play king to g8.
Yeah, black has to play king to g8, and you will always sit on g8, h8 squares. And even my queen c4 check, king h8, queen c3 check
it doesn't get you anywhere, no?
Doesn't give me anything big, yeah. So that was kind of the concern Jan had. However, I don't think that this is all forced. because after knight d7, I mean, maybe I have a, but
Maybe
the
not,
knight is
Peter. Maybe
knight
not.
is protecting the rook on b8 and covers all these checks. Yeah, we can't give a check.
Yeah. I mean, there is no check possible, and then one move b2, and black has enough counterplay. Perhaps somebody, a chat, or we do have an answer from Tad, our producer, and he's saying that after rook d7, it is in fact a draw. So this line that we're looking at is absolutely correct. This is the reason Jan decided not to play this very tempting looking move, because you do win the queen, but black has enough counterplay to force white into a perpetual. But Peter, that just leaves me wondering, where did white miss the win and what was the line?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so rook d7 was super tempting and an incredible defense there by black with this queen d7, knight d7, knight d7. It's quite shocking that black can survive like this. That maybe actually this had an impact on Jan, that he already felt like the game is over here. Yeah, he already did not expect that there will be any more question to this game, and he opted for rook c3. Okay, a very natural move, yeah, because using the tempo. Maybe according to computer there is a cleaner solution, but humanly this is all very understandable. The move queen e7 happened, and after knight d5, queen g7, clearly Jan had missed this defense with rook f8. That was his problem. That was his problem.
Peter, chat is informing us that Flash is telling us that Sese says rook d5. I'm not sure at which moment exactly that is.
Yeah, here after yeah, I was actually calculating this. Yeah, g3, knight e5, the move rook d5, and it basically forces b2. Rook takes e5, you get a new queen, and black doesn't have a threat. And then here the question was that can you play queen g6 with the idea of going queen takes a6 check, and after queen g7 you have rook e8 check. Rook takes e8, queen e8 checkmate. Yeah,
Peter, this is too much. This is too much.
Well, I think it's not that difficult, but the problem was that, you know, at that moment when Jan already thought like that's it, game is over. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. That emotionally you think like it's game over, and your brain is already not sharp enough. I'm pretty sure that in any other given situation, Jan would be telling you, okay, I can find this very, very easily. But he was disbalanced. This whole game was crazy. It was not logical. And then finding this rook d5, of course, it's very, very difficult.
But that's a beautiful line that you pointed out, just allowing black to queen the pawn, because white's king on h2 is still a move away from any kind of check. You threaten a mate on h6. Queen h6 is a big threat. And after queen g7, you give a mate on e8. That's an absolutely stunning line. And it's also kind of down to, probably in a classical format or, you know, a longer time control, you can calculate a move like rook d5, but having no idea what the current situation is, evaluation is, you've got these clear lines with rook c3 or rook d7. Rook d5 is just a move that might not even come to your mind as a candidate.
Yeah, the problem was, I think, that this rook d7 was already so hard to believe, yeah, because it looks like it's so tempting and it should win on the spot. And then first you drive yourself crazy that, okay, takes. Why can't I find, I have millions checks and probably it should be winning, but afterwards you feel like, okay, but if I don't serve enough to king g8, it's a draw, then you suddenly are getting nervous and you are desperately searching for some other move. And then you notice that, okay, but then let me play rook c3, it looks good enough. And things like this can distract you. Yeah, it can really distract you.
Turns out, Peter, we're being informed by chat that not just rook d5 here, but rook d6 is also a winning move. Thanks to everyone who's helping out in chat. That's always appreciated when we get a little stuck. Rook d6 with the idea of hitting the knight on e5, and queen d6 impossible because of queen h7.
Yeah, rook d6 is also one of these moves that are basically smiling on you, but it's also a little bit too complicated. Yeah, that, okay, b2, of course, if you spend time, you notice that, of course, yeah, it's very, very strong. I mean, it should be made, but it's not that automatic, and yeah, you can miss it. Definitely, both would have been beautiful wins. However, we already have liftoff in the Artemiev Carlsen game, so we should get to the live action.
Magnus playing the Grunfeld.
Yeah, playing the Grunfeld. I mean, many people started playing, for example, Daniel Dubov in Vakanzi was playing Grunfeld also. clearly meaning that they took it very seriously. Yeah, that Jan will play the Grünfeld. They worked a lot, and then if you work a lot, you tend to have this desire to try to use this work, yeah, that you have done. And now they are playing Jan's opening the Grünfeld. Bishop G5.
G5, and this is still one of the main lines here, right? And but Magnus slows down. Although I think Bishop G5 and Bishop F4, these are the two main moves after Knight F3.
Well, if you want to be very solid with white, yeah, this is not really an ambitious move, but it basically just want to signal you that, you know what, you want to play the Grünfeld, you want to have fun, you want to enjoy those sharp lines. Let me have none of it. Yeah, I'm expecting a Bishop F4. I think that's how this super solid line goes, which also Magnus himself was using a couple of times with white. I think after Bishop F4, you have the tendency of reaching some end games, you know, some very solid stuff. Zvyaginsev used to be a big expert in this line. Yeah, Bishop F4 on the board. Bishop F4. I remember my game against Zvyaginsev from Tilburg 98. We had a theoretical clash. It exactly went along the lines that happens lately in this line. For example, how does it go? For example, knight takes c3, b takes c3, c5. I mean, there are different move orders, but I just want to more or less show this position. Castle, cd5, queen d5, bishop e2, cd4, cd4, knight c6, castles, bishop f5. This used to be mainline theory when I was playing the Grünfeld with the black pieces, and it was said like, you know, this is a very solid position. If I'm not mistaken, then Zvyaginsev came up with knight h4 novelty in that game instead of the usual queen a4. Queen a4 is the main move, but he played knight h4. I spent 20 minutes and I came up with the response bishop c8, and it was very interesting. And after something like queen a4, I don't want to be wrong, but somewhere I used something like knight takes d4, ed4, queen e4 idea, and I was so proud of myself finding this idea, and I had a very comfortable position and made a very easy draw with the black pieces. I do recall, you know, this knight h4, bishop c8. I was so proud to notice that I have this knight takes d4 idea.
Yeah, and queen e4 wins the piece back. That's super nice. Because bishop e3, the knight on h4 is hanging. Quite a nice geometry there.
Yes. So this was the theory, and now we are seeing the players are getting along these lines. Yeah, knight takes c3, b6, c5 played, e3 will be played. I'm expecting, you know, this, but definitely white will not play knight h4. White will play probably queen a4, and we will see a strategical battle there. But there are also many other, I mean, so much development had happened here with the move orders.
Magnus isn't blitzing through with his moves. That's quite interesting. He plays the Grünfeld, but he's playing it very slowly, taking his time to really see which structures he wants to go through. And that makes one feel that perhaps he's not super familiar. Magnus is familiar with pretty much all openings, but it doesn't feel he's playing it as confidently as he usually would play an opening.
Yeah, but also here there are so many move orders, and he knows that more or less probably all move orders lead to the same position. But every single move order has its point, and maybe he knows very well the Tabia position. Yeah, that will arise, and then we will see him. Yeah, you see now he's speeding up. There is also this option of going queen a5 check here, but queen a5, queen d2, it was, as far as I remember, was slightly tiny bit better for white. So that's why I preferred actually to go knight c6 and keep the tension.
And knight c6, sorry Peter, how did it continue that line after knight c6?
Yeah, knight c6 castles, and then bishop f5. Yeah, this is the main tabia, and instead of knight h4, white usually plays queen a4. That's the debate, and I think there is some debate like queen a5, and then where do you trade the queens? There are many differences. Magnus himself was playing something like this. Was it in 2008 Vaikanze? I do remember he beat Elyanov. I think Magnus beat Elyanov, and he beat him in one of these end games. Magnus likes to play this from the white side as well occasionally, and he goes queen a5 check. Queen d2, queen takes d2, king takes d2, of course. Yeah, knight c6.
Peter, these Grunfeld endings are always quite interesting and complex because black has got this queenside majority. So white needs to watch out for a passer being created. But meanwhile, white has a strong central hold. And very often, it actually seems to benefit white, this pawn structure. What are the different ways that black can play here? What are the plans for black? Can you break down this position strategically for us?
Yeah, strategically, the whole point of what white is saying that, with thanks to this d4, e3 pawns, I have no weakness. I'm shutting out your bishop. And unless you can break the position with e5, which at the moment is not really working because white is controlling the e5 move very well. And that's why we also understand that rook hb1 was a very natural move because it puts pressure on the b7 pawn. It does not let black's bishop be developed easily. Yeah, now black has to go for b6. And often this b6 then loosens the knight on c6. Now the move a4 bleeds out. For example, bishop b7 might run into a5. Yes, probably white wants to play.
Knight a5.
Yeah, rook a5, bishop takes f3. That's why I slowed down a little bit while talking. But after bishop takes f3, b takes a5, bishop a8, rook a8, and the move rook a1, white will again get a very, very pleasant endgame after collecting the pawn back and then rely on his more active bishop.
Interesting, and especially because this bishop on f4, it stops rook b8 counterplay as well as rook c8, rook c7 idea. So there's no way for black to actually activate the rook to a point where it defends the a7 pawn as well as captures the open file.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things. This is always very, very solid. Yeah, Magnus after a4 blocks this pawn with knight a5, very, very natural move. He would love to develop his bishop. Yeah, he wants to develop his bishop as quickly as possible to f5. And the big question is, yeah, how does white keep his momentum going? Yeah, that's a very, very big question.
And Peter, I also see we've got liftoff on our other game. The first one was just super dramatic between these two players. This time it starts with Andrei Asipienko choosing the Spanish, the Roy Lopez on the board.
Yeah, Andrei goes for the Spanish, but look at this. Jan playing. What did he play? So no Berlins, suddenly main Spanish. Okay, very, very interesting. I mean, I can again reveal, that this is Jan's preparation for the World Championship match, but of course from the white side. I mean, yeah, this is what they have been debating against Magnus. This whole Spanish after bishop e7. And probably Jan feels like, okay, I have done so much work. Why am I not trying to play it from the black side? And Andrei opts for d3, b5, bishop b3, d6, c3. So it's kind of a sideline from Andrei Castle's h3, but a very modern one. Black goes bishop b7, bishop c2, rook e8, rook e1, bishop f8, knight bd2, knight e7, and yeah, well, it's a typical Spanish. I used to play this from the white side. I play it also from the black side. So a very, very typical opening. Jan goes knight e7. There is also another option of going knight b8. This is the Breyer style, yeah, that you bring your knight to d7. Also absolutely playable, but Jan opts for knight e7. He wants to get knight to g6.
So after d4, you want to react with knight g6, defending the e5 pawn as well as trying to jump onto the f4 square. And of course, as usual in these structures, black is always aiming at and trying to get the d5 break.
Yeah, it's very, very... I mean, I'm a little bit surprised by this knight e7, knight g6. I don't know that this is so typical, but I mean, of course, it's very natural.
Does black want to go d5 or does he want to go c5 in such positions, Peter? Once d4, but he decides to play a4. So knight e7, a4, knight g6 is the current position.
Yeah, knight e7, a4, knight g6. Well, I mean, okay, white will probably sooner or later play d4 anyway, or he will just refrain. There is also this idea of going b4, knight b3. That's also a typical idea, trying to get the knight to a5. It's
Is it time though for Andre to play d4, or does he this idea that you're mentioning, knight b3, knight a5, hitting that bishop is the other plan, but he chooses a third option. He wants to direct that knight to g3 and then to the f5 square, also making sure black's knight doesn't jump into f4, moving the knight, and immediately black seizes the opportunity to go d5.
Yeah, he goes d5, and I feel like this is not very healthy. Yeah, c5 is played as well.
I was asking you whether black should go d5 or c5. Jan just says I'm going to go both.
Yeah, exactly. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful position. I mean, I feel like in the previous game, Andre got what he wanted in the opening, and Jan got with the black pieces everything that he could have hoped for. Yeah, it's a very, very natural classical Spanish, a really traditional classical position. That's why usually you play the Spanish. Yeah, this is a dream position.
Yeah, it really does feel like that black got everything that Spanish players with the black side would want to aim for. A break in the center with d5, all the pieces centralized. The knight has moved from c6 to g6 already. Complete control, more space. So definitely a very different narrative from the start of what we saw in game one between these two players. Peter, let's move on to our other game. We'll come back and see how Andre builds his play in this game. Magnus against Artemiev. Very interesting development. White has gotten g4, g5. Let's take it from where we left it, and you can break down the action for us.
Yeah, this is very interesting, because after a4, yeah, knight a5, the big question was how will White try to use his slight advantage, because thanks to the center pawns, and it's kind of nice for black to play knight a5, block this a4 pawn, but he also moved from the center, so black is not anymore really threatening to go e7, e5. Yeah, thanks to this, then White can move his knight from f3 to d2, covering some squares on, for example, the b3 square, which is very important. After bishop b7, he goes g4, grabbing space. It's very, very typical. Also trying to fix black's pawn structure. After rook c8, rook c1, now we see why it was so important to put the knight on d2. The rook has already done its job on the b file. Now he moves it back to c1, and very important to stop knight b3. Magnus says, you know, that I need this e5 break. I would need to, and also bring my king closer. He goes f6, and immediately Vladislav plays g5. It's a very, very typical way of fighting this position, and it also shows this very special feeling that also Magnus always talks about when he speaks about Artemiev, that he has an incredible positional feeling, and I feel like in this game he's really showing it.
And bishop to f8, Peter, was the reaction. I was just wondering, how does black react to a move like g5? You don't want to take on g5. Let's just put that bishop back on g7. If you take on g5, bishop takes g5, the e7 pawn would be drastically weak. It's also white. This is something that you never want. If you fix the position with f5, for example, then that also looks quite like a position that you don't want with this g5 clamping down h7. The knight might jump to e5 in the future, so it's not an ideal move you want to play. So what would be the reaction? And Magnus chooses the move bishop to f8. What is his idea with this retreating move?
Yeah, well, his idea is that, okay, he wants to encourage White, okay, please take on f6, but then I'm gonna play ef6, and my bishop is wonderful. Yeah, the black's bishop might come to b4. In fact, not encourage, discourage g takes f6, pardon me, yeah, because this would immediately mean that black is getting very nice counterplay with bishop b4. Yes, it's committal because White has now the center pawns. Yeah, black is not able to fight for the center, but I do feel like this counterplay with bishop b4 maybe outweighs the importance of the center pawn at this moment. And from White side, when you see that black has played the move bishop f8, you feel like, oh no, I mean, he doesn't want anything. I mean, black maybe, I mean, no, it doesn't want anything is also a lie again, because actually black wants to play e5. So let's just say that White makes a pass with h4, yeah, reinforcing the king side. He has to reckon with e5, and after d5, suddenly again this bishop b4 idea comes. And black might win the game using the pin.
Oh, that's actually a really nice trick. So bishop f8 looks like it would be a harmless move, but black actually intending tactics with the move e5. So white needs to respond. Peter, whenever there are these kind of positions, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Karpov idea of going bishop c7. It was a different one. It was bishop to a7, but a similar idea of trying to go bishop c7, not trade on the c file and double up. But unfortunately, in this position, I think after bishop c7, you have rook d7, which doesn't give white the time to regroup the pieces the way you want, because bishop g4 runs into rook c7.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the point. If now white would be able to play two moves and double on the c file, then of course white would be very, very happy. Unfortunately, this does not work. And in this case, then after bishop f8, actually Magnus puts some pressure on the position. Yeah, there is also the question that, for example, can white try to play something like bishop g4, putting pressure on the c8 rook, and then how do you...
Let's take a look at a forcing line.
Yeah,
like
f5, and then I'm just coming back, and now I'm saying that, you know what, now you don't have this e5 break anymore because I can take with the bishop, so I don't have to be worried. You still have this. We can also show that e5, bishop e5, bishop b4 still with knight b3 is kind of tricky, but I do feel that there should be something for white here.
But is there something for white? Because the moment you point this out, it looks like white still needs to make an accurate move, because even if you go rook a b1, black can go rook c1, bishop d2, king d2, knight b3.
Yes, exactly. You can
with rook c1.
Yes, of course, yeah. So takes, you cannot start with knight b3 because of bishop c4 check. Yeah, that's what I wanted to highlight. So you take, bishop takes d2, king d2, knight b3 check. And this looks good for, I mean, white has compensation with the two bishops, but black should never be worse, maybe can even be better. So yeah, bishop f8, lot to calculate, and we see Vladislav slowing down and seeing already all these tactical options. Now I think we can really appreciate the move bishop f8. Those little moves, especially in rapid time control, can have a big impact on a game.
It's actually incredible, Peter. A move like bishop f8, a retreating move to a square which is not even an open diagonal. I think for most of us, it's something that we wouldn't even consider. And like you said, the moment you go deep into the position, you really realize all the ideas that exist, and which is why a strong player, one of the best grandmasters in the world, Artemiev, goes into a think tank. Peter, meanwhile, while this is a slow grinding action by both players, Esipenko Jan is nothing like that. Quite a wild position on the board, exactly what we expect from these two players who have such a combative style of play. Lots is happening. Black's knight on f4, the two rooks on the central files. Is Jan better here, or does white have things under control?
Well, I mean, it looks very dangerous for white, but of course black is also risking big time. Yeah, we saw that black has solved all his openings problems quite quickly. And after bishop d2, h6, b4, Jan probably felt like, this is his chance. He can, of course, just play for equality with, for example, cb4. Black has everything under control. It's perfectly fine, but he already wanted more. He goes for double H play with c4, d takes c4, b takes c4. I mean, also b takes c4 is very, very ambitious already. Also a move like d takes c4 is perfectly fine for black. I would even say that maybe black is slightly more comfortable. So it really seems like Jan is going for, and look at this. Look at this. Apparently, apparently there is a winning combination. For example, knight takes g2 and then rook takes d2. I mean, isn't this winning on the spot?
Oh, wow. Let's take a look, Peter. Knight takes g2. And you don't have time to take knight d3 because c takes d3 would hit the queen.
Well, so Jan actually starts with rook d2. Probably it's the same. Yeah, rook d2 and next knight g2.
And the f3 pawn is super weak. Black is crashing through white's king side. So queen d2, knight g2, you hit the rook. And after king g2, there's queen f3. King will have to go to f1 and bishop f3 is checkmate.
Yeah, exactly. This is the final point of the combination.
Esipenko is in disbelief right now.
Yeah, but I mean, he should really be very, very angry with himself that, okay, you just cannot. First of all, he's a big expert in the Spanish. Yeah, he plays the Marshal himself with black. He chose a completely wrong way of, dealing with this surprise. Maybe he was not expecting Jan to be so ready in these positions. He wanted to rely on understanding, not on move per move variation, but it seems like, Jan understands these positions extremely well, and he goes on to demolish white. Yeah, just demolish completely.
And I think, Peter, it's important to point out that actually the way Jan has executed this idea of knight g2 is very precise, because if you start with knight g2, it's still strong, but it gives white this additional move of taking on d3. You take with the pawn, queen d3. Black still maintains an advantage, but it's not winning. And black still has to show technique in this position. You can grab back, knight e1, rook e1. White's king side is weak, but it's far, far from over.
Yes,
With
of
rook
course,
g2,
yeah, of course. I mean, it was clear just that, okay, some knight g2 is coming somewhere, and yeah, Jan is very precise, or definitely he has the chance. Yeah, so rook d2, bishop d2 is now on the board. And also look at this, that Jan is still 15.5 minutes on the clock. Yeah, so basically he has more time on the clock at this moment than he started the game with.
I'm telling you, Peter, Jan plays exceptional chess when he's not thinking as much.
Yes, but also when he gets his position, I mean, he was just given a wonderful position. Yeah, in the first game it was exactly the opposite. He didn't know what to do. Yeah, it was Andrei who showed all the confidence, and well, I'm very happy for Jan that his idea of experimenting paid off so well.
All right, Peter, let's try and look at some lines. Although I do see that the position is hopeless for white, but knight takes g2, you're threatening the rook and the pawn on f3. If white simply sidesteps with the rook, is queen f3 the simplest?
Yeah, well, also, where do I put this rook? Yeah, it's my responsibility. I have to make a move with the mouse, but everything looks so hopeless.
Okay, let's move it to rook e2, for example.
Yeah, rook e2, of course, then you can take on f3. Besides, I just want to highlight that a move like knight h4 is also a complete massacre with knight takes f3 check coming in. But okay, queen f3 is good enough.
Queen f3, and this is so hopeless.
Yeah, I mean, this mating attack, the knight moves and then queen g2 check is coming. The knight dominates all the squares, all the defending squares. I mean, rook e4 is maybe the best move. We just, it would be great to give this rook away, but black is not taking it, yeah?
Black is taking that f3 pawn.
Yeah, black takes on f3 and the position just completely collapses. I mean, there is still no good move for white.
The one thing I've noticed about Asipienko, because this is the first time we're seeing him in the tour, he's very expressive, Peter. I mean, poker face is not his thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely new to this online. Yeah, rook e4 is on the board, and he just, he behaves how he feels according to the position. Yeah, if he's happy, he's very satisfied. But if he sees that to his horror he missed something, then he just acts like if he would be alone at home. Yeah, nobody is watching. Very sincere. Yeah, his reactions are very sincere.
But it's funny because in OTB chess, over the board chess, whenever we've seen him play, he's a lot more conscious. I mean, you don't see, and I think that is so typical of online play, that we get to see the brutal emotions and the heartbreaks and everything that the players are feeling, because it's so easy to forget. You're alone in your room, you've got a camera in front of you, you don't have anybody around. It's very easy to forget and let that guard down and let your emotions through.
Yeah, and I can understand him perfectly. I mean, this position, you just think like, how did this happen? How did this happen? I mean, this was a classical Spanish. It's supposed to be the strategic, nice maneuvering game, and I'm just getting crushed completely. I mean, how did I allow this? He's in total horror.
All right, so h5 on the board, and I think the bigger issue is also that in the previous game for Andre, he was the one who was pushing it throughout, and then there was that big turnaround as well. So that was a big miss. And then with the white pieces coming into this much pressure, h5 played. Peter, it hits the rook on g4. After rook takes g6, is it your idea of knight h4 that would wrap up the game?
Yeah, looks very effective. I mean, knight h4, the only square is the rook has to retreat to g5, I believe. And no, he takes queen g6. Okay, he tries he tries
Queen
to.
G6.
I don't know. He wants this. Yeah, that after G4, he wants counterplay with knight G4 and hoping for some knight H. For example, if black plays the move knight H4, then knight H6 check, king H8, knight F7 check would be a nice escape.
An escape immediately with a perpetual.
Yes. So this is what he's trying. He tries to grab his chance. Yeah, he knows that if he just tries to, I mean, he lets black's initiative continue, then it's over. But I believe also after queen G6, it should be over.
Well, at least also the other thing that queen G6 makes sure is that black doesn't have to move knight H4. The rook on G4 is there and there's no mate on H1. So black still needs to be precise. After H takes G4, knight takes G4, and this defends the G2 square. And in this position,
Jan opts for knight F4, and this knight F4 looks like a very clever move because not taking on G4, not allowing white to activate the knight, opens up the diagonal. The rook still has nowhere to go.
So after bishop F4, will you play H takes G4?
Well, actually, suddenly everything looks very tempting. But yes, actually now now we can take HG because there is no knight G4 because of checkmate.
Yes.
And then basically, then we are already material up and we are having a mating attack.
Yeah, you go queen G4, and even if black trades the queens, he ends up with an extra piece in the endgame. Knight F4, very precise play. And take a look at the clock. Jan Nepomniachtchi, pretty much with the amount of time that he started the game with, a crushing position with the black pieces. Knight F4 on the board, immediately threatening also moves like knight E2, and now he's actually threatening to take the rook on G4. Peter, what happens if white does take queen E8? Do you simply ignore everything and pick up the rook on G4? Queen E6 is not possible, and you're threatening mate on G2.
Yeah, queen E8 just AG, and queen G2 check mate is coming. So no defense. In fact, one has the feeling that after knight F4 the game is decided. It's just game over, and it's a total massacre.
This is amazing stuff. I mean, it's just he's gone for rook F4. So we've got rook F4 on the board. He quickly snaps up. White can never take on E8 because the queen G2 mate is in the air always. So you need that queen to defend the square. And after bishop F4, now the point is that queen F4, you can pick up the rook. So Peter, you're pointing out the move rook to E2, hitting that knight on F2 and picking up that bishop on F4.
Yeah, because F4 bishop is hanging, and after queen G3,
rook
we can
F2,
simply
rook F2.
Yeah, we can simply collect and give the checkmate. Yeah. So yeah, rook E2 on the board, and it's not early to design. It's just checkmate in the next moves, or you have to give up way too much material.
I don't even see a way for white to actually continue the game, because even if you play something like rook F1, black has a nice choice. You can decide to take the bishop or decide to take rook F2 anyway. Yeah,
I think that you have to design. I mean, there is just no point in continuing. Wow, it's a incredible massacre. I also feel that, that the previous game still had an impact on this. Yeah, that maybe Andrea was very euphoric at the end that he survived that incredible scare despite winning at the beginning. It was a very, very big turnaround afterwards. And okay, we have to wait for Andre to make up his mind. I feel like he's not even thinking about the position anymore. He just wants to calm down because okay, this is a complete knockout blow. Peter, I'm just wondering, you start with the white pieces, you play the Spanish. What moment do you think it is when things went so horribly wrong for Andre? What was that decisive moment in the game? And Andre Asipienko throws in the towel. There is nothing to play for. He resigns. With this, Jan Nepomniachtchi takes the lead in their match. Yeah, he takes and a very, very important lead. I mean, but how important it was this first game. Yeah, if Andre would have won that game with the black pieces, then he would have never played this line. Yeah, and we saw the same narrative yesterday in the Artemiev versus Ding-Liren match as well, that game 3, which Ding went on to lose from a winning position, had a big impact on game 4 because his decisions were clearly not those that he would have taken if the match situation would have been in his favor or under control. This is still a big strategical battle, and you know what? Let's go back to this position, and Artemiev has played the move bishop c7 after long thoughts.
Peter,
with-
which was that game which originated this idea with bishop a7? Was it against Unzicker?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean,
The Karpov Unzicker.
yeah,
game,
but
I think.
also this bishop c7 already had been played in many of these positions as
Before
well.
that. I feel like that's the first game where I saw and learned about this concept of putting the bishop to block out a file for a trade.
Yeah, but here it's the idea is much more, even more subtle, because here he cannot maintain the bishop, but Andrea came back with the bishop to g3, and it's wonderful because now we see that he will not step into these e5 ideas anymore. So after rook d8, which kind of was obligatory from Magnus's side, now he doesn't need to worry about e5, and he goes on to play bishop f3, offering the trade of the light squared bishop. Bishop takes f3, knight f3, h6. Yeah, it's clearly Magnus is trying to provoke now gf, ef. He wants to free up his bishop. Vladislav says, no, my friend, I don't want to let this happen, h4. Keeping boxing in this bishop on f8. Knight b3 takes, rook d1 on the board. However, he did allow some counterplay on the, I'm a little bit surprised by rook d1, but okay. And king f7 on the board.
To me, I'm still struggling to understand, Peter, that why is it so unpleasant for black? A4 pawn feels like it's the weakness for white. Why can't Magnus just try and get the rook to c4 and start hitting that pawn?
Yeah, I'm also trying to find the reasons why engine says that white is better, because to me it feels like Magnus should be quite satisfied with what he achieved. Yes, this pawn on g5 is really nasty and disturbs black, because he can never move the e7 pawn. That's his problem. Whenever he moves the e7 pawn, then gf will be a strategically winning exchange. Yeah. For example, just to illustrate that if black plays something like e6, then gf, king f6 is hopelessly lost. And now white plays the move d5, a move that really surprises me. I just don't see the point behind this move. Also it opens up. Sorry, I just wanted to say, it opens up the c5 for black's knight, yeah, as well.
That's exactly what I was about to say as well, Peter, that the move d5 looks like it creates this weakness where black can now jump onto c5. You were talking about the attack on the a4 pawn. It's not just the rook that can attack it, but the knight as well. Knight c5. And now it looks like black should be fine with this beautiful spot for the knight. If you go rook d4, maybe black can black go knight b3 then?
Yeah, it's basically already he has a chance, I think, to start repeating, and he can also signal that he's absolutely fine. Maybe he has other moves, but to me it's just very, very strange that why would Artemiev play like this? I mean, the most natural move would have been here rook b1, forcing this knight to move back to a5, and then you take it from there. I understand that now rook c4 is a threat, but still this knight on b3 was really disturbing, and after rook d1, king f7, d5, allowing knight to return to c5 is quite strange.
Yeah, Artemiev doesn't look pleased with what just has happened, and allowing knight c5, a strange decision. What we were looking at was if rook d4 defending a4, amongst other things. If Magnus wants, he has the option to go knight b3, because then after rook b4, Peter, maybe we can just have that line on the board. There's always these options. Let's say rook b4, you want to attack the knight. Black can even go back, but also jump in with the rook to c3.
Yeah, there are so many options suddenly. I mean, it feels that black is so active. And clearly the move rook d4, yeah, finally on the board, but Artemiev is down to 47 seconds. I mean, this is quite scary, giving the momentum to Magnus. And Magnus goes bishop g7. Now he says, like, you know what? I don't need my bishop on f8 anymore. Your rook is vulnerable. Let me return with the Grunfeld bishop to g7. gf6 played. Yeah, now white had to release the tension.
So after bishop f6, white still wants to plant the piece on e5. Knight e5 check can be played, or even bishop e5. He takes the control of the e5 square with e takes f6. But the move bishop g7 seems to imply that Magnus wants more in the position. And Peter, also very impressive play with that bishop. Bishop g7 in the opening, then you go back bishop f8, and then the bishop comes back to g7. And every time it's been there, there's been a pawn in front of that diagonal. But always with these devilish threats of coming into play with a trade or a pawn move. Very interesting bishop maneuvers by Magnus in this one.
Yeah, very, very impressive. Nevertheless, okay, basically white is very solid, so we should not be overreacting in black's favor. We just saw like, okay, Artemiev was actually putting some pressure in this endgame, yeah? And then with this bishop f8 move first, Magnus created counter chances for himself and forced white to change the structure. And ever since he got active, it feels like black has nothing to worry about. However, okay, white is also very, very well centralized, yet he doesn't have any really bad piece. Yeah, everything is under control. Pawn on a4 is under control. Now the big question is also what Magnus wants from this game. Yeah, that does he want to play against Artemiev's clock situation, or will he just think like, you know what, I'm leading the match, the position is more or less balanced, let me find the safe way. I think that's what Magnus is thinking about now.
All right, so what is the way then? King e2 played on the board. Peter, if he wants a safe way, then I feel he's gone knight d7. And knight d7 also eyes the idea of black's rook jumping onto the second rank with rook c2 and f5 now that he's taken control of the e5 square.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's a very, very nice multi-purpose move. Also, you are blocking the pawn, opening up the rook, and getting ready to activate your bishop with f6, f5, taking the e5 square under control. And a very unpleasant move now with 20 seconds. Yeah, white goes knight d2. Yeah, I thought like this is the best because white needs to be able to fight for the c5 with rook c4.
Very nice.
Yeah, Magnus goes f5. Now rook c4 will be played. However, after rook c4 takes knight f6, can black actually target this pawn? Let's just quickly see this. Takes.
But maybe white has bishop b8 after knight f6.
Yes, yeah, white has bishop b8, which would lead to a draw, I guess, because bishop b8, knight takes d5, bishop a7, black has knight c3 check, but we will trade all the pawns. So this is...
I don't see Magnus being too hesitant or disappointed with that outcome. I mean, this is such a forcing line. Rook c4, knight c4. He's gone for rook c5. One gets the impression that Magnus is getting ambitious in this position.
Well, but maybe also simply that because after rook c4, knight c4, he could feel that after knight f6, there is even maybe knight e5 check taking the g6 pawn. Okay, there are too many tactical possibilities. Why? Yeah, if he feels safe, then he just wants to keep the position. Wow, rook c5 is met almost instantly from okay, he doesn't have time, but I mean to find the move f2, f3, and if this is really a strong move, that's quite amazing because giving up the d5 pawn for the activity and then with the threat of going e3, e4 shows the great class of Artemiev.
I mean, if black doesn't pick up the d5 pawn, then white wants to go e4 anyway on the next move to solidify the center. Peter, what is the idea? Let's take a look at this line that you're mentioning. Rook takes d5, snap up the pawn, has to be rook c7, grabbing the 7th rank, attacking that pawn on a7, and king e6 you're pointing out. Can black actually keep that pawn? Can black go a5 or is e4 too dangerous then?
Yeah, I feel that, okay, it's too dangerous because after e4, fe, after rook d4, first of all, white already has bishop f2, rook d6, bishop g3 at least, but bishop f2, rook d6, knight c4 wins the game. So yes, Magnus, of course, after rook d5, rook c7 goes king e6. He cannot let this happen.
So supporting the knight on d7. And now if white snaps up with rook a7, the bishop can jump to c3, attacking the knight, and then knight c5.
Yeah, then already there are so many options. I mean, you can also try to play bishop e5, rook a5 as well is possible. Now we will see a draw, yeah, because white will go knight c4, black will play knight c5, or knight b3, knight b6. It's more or less the... Okay, there is also bishop b3, but no, of course, yeah, Magnus already goes for the draw. Knight b3, knight a5.
Complete liquidation of the position with all the pawns being picked up. And this will end in a draw. Quite a fighting one.
Yeah, very fighting. I mean, this is the typical fighting Grunfeld endgame. Yeah, people are thinking that yes, it's solid for white and it's quite drawish, but there are so many finesses, and you really have to play incredibly well in order to understand what is happening. You just can't play just simple moves. Yeah, you really need to play high quality game. Knight c5. Well, black is very, very tiny bit better, but of course there is just not enough material to claim anything serious. However, maybe Magnus, especially with the time situation, he will try to continue the game.
He's completely out of danger, right? And he's got nothing to worry about in the position. He's the one with the better pawn structure, the one with the better king, the one with the better, more active knight. So might play on actually for a little bit. And Artemiev says, I want to trade every single pawn on the board, even if it means giving up one. And let's not forget, the h1 square is of the wrong color. So sometimes white will also have the ideas after the knights are traded to give that bishop up for the pawn. But Peter, if he goes knight e4 in this position, king e4, king f2, does black have time to come towards the h pawn with king f5?
But king f5 then is always king f3. However, he started with bishop f1. I'm a little bit surprised. Yeah, I was also expecting him if he already went for these sacrifices. But the trick was that after knight takes e4, king e4, king f2, it runs into bishop e5.
Oh, wow. And forcing a king pawn ending.
Yes. And then with the h4 weakness, it might be lost. Yeah, for example, bishop e5, king e5, king e3, king f5, king f3, h5 is zugzwang. Yeah.
This is amazing little trick there with, it's so easy to fall into this when you're playing a blitz game or a bullet game where you take on e4 and you make the hand move king f2 and then suddenly you're lost.
Yes, it's very, very easy. But of course, yeah, Artem is very alert. Nevertheless, I'm a little bit surprised that he gave the pawn so easily because I felt like, there was a moment here that he could have played bishop f4, eyeing the h6 pawn, so the bishop on g7 cannot move. And if black plays the natural move knight e6, then white can play the e4 check move. And it looked safe enough, then the bishop retreats back to e3. So there was, in my opinion, no reason to give it. But maybe he feels that this is dead draw and then he wanted to, with little time on the clock, clarify the situation. But the game will only start for Magnus now.
That's very well put. The game just starts for Magnus when most of us think that this is going to end in a draw. Knight d3 played. He doesn't want to give that knight for the bishop because then the white knight would be very strong. Bishop g5, trying to keep things under control so far. How can Magnus create chances here? Does he come with the king to f5 or knight e5, knight g4 first?
Yeah, knight e5 check, king g3. White definitely will never let black's king to this g4. If black king reaches g4, then the pawn on h4 in long terms will be very vulnerable. Yeah, Magnus first tries to kick this bishop away from g5. Bishop e3 is the most likely move because then
I have a bad feeling for Artemiev in this one.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, it should be holdable as you mentioned very nicely. It's very important to note that the h1 square is of a wrong color. So any kind of scenarios where white can sacrifice a piece and end up in this position is a great resource. And it looks like there shouldn't, he should never lose the h4 pawn just like this, yeah? So for example, knight h6, knight f5 check is not an idea, but he will, yeah, knight h6 on the board. Well,
you know what? I really want to hear it from our chat, what they think. We all know about Magnus and how he grinds down endgames, but of course, this one is super tough. Well, knight f5 puts pressure on h4. Let's run a poll for what the chat prediction is. Will Magnus have the Magnus touch in this endgame, or will Artemiev be able to hold this? Let's do a result prediction at this point.
Yeah, well, it's now very, very tricky. I'm just absolutely not liking. I have the feeling that Artemiev blundered this bishop e5 and he sacrificed the pawn. I feel like he thought like he will be able to trade the knights, yeah? Because this was definitely not the plan to play such a terrible torture, because this is just a total torture. Nothing moves. The king is not completely stuck on h3. Of course, white has still very, very good drawing chances because there is very little material on the board, but looking very scary.
Our chat has got mixed feelings about this, but I see they do believe in Artemiev's power to hold this one with lots of people saying that it's going to be a draw. Some are towards a Magnus win. I think the one thing's for sure that Magnus is going to keep playing this one. It's going to be a long grind.
That's 200%. Yeah, that's for sure. It's so unpleasant. And Artemiev down to 5 seconds on the board. I have the feeling that maybe the chat is a little bit fooled by the computer evaluation, that the computer says that this is draw, but with few seconds on the clock and your opponent constantly able to put pressure and ask questions. Yeah, king f3, bishop e1. If the bishop leaves the diagonal, you lose the h4 pawn immediately. Now you have to reckon with king e2, then luckily you still have bishop g3. If these are the ways to, that you have to try to hang on, this is just very, very scary.
And also then king d3, you have to keep moving the knight further away in the position. Magnus opts for the move bishop to d4. What is the idea of this one?
Well, put you in a kind of a situation that you have to make a move, and making a move is so difficult. Now, Artemiev is trying to regroup his bishop to g5. I think Magnus will probably not let this happen. He goes knight g3. He doesn't mind because he can immediately challenge it with knight e4. He wants to find the route, like, to kick the king away from h3, and then he could get king g4. And 5 seconds to Artemiev. I don't believe that he will hold this.
Oh my God. 1 second he made the move bishop to g5. And as you mentioned, moves like bishop d4, very difficult to deal with because you simply have to find a way to continue. Magnus is just taking away more and more squares from Artemiev's pieces. Bishop g5 on the board. He has to watch out for these ideas like knight e4, knight f2 check, and then bishop e5 might be mate if that knight is not on c4. The king on h2, Peter, is a bit boxed up as well. Yeah, luckily, I mean, the point was that this move, bishop g5, was very timely, so that after knight e4, he has the move knight d2 check. That's the saving move. If not for knight d2 check, yeah, it would have been lost. So super, super important situation. After knight f5, now he had the time to kick this king away. King e2, knight e4, at least another knight came a bit closer. Bishop e5, knight c5, king f3. Still, you see that's why it's so unpleasant to defend. Okay, now he's at least heading towards knight f8. So Magnus will probably put the bishop on d6, stopping any kind of counterplay, and keep on maneuvering. There's also knight d6, knight e4, knight f2. I don't know why, but I'm just looking at some mating ideas. He starts with knight g3. Tricky idea. Knight h1, knight f2 is checkmate. White needs to watch out, Peter. For example, knight f8 runs into knight h1, knight f2, and there's no way to fight it if you play knight f8. Yes, exactly. I mean, this is then over, but Artemiev, of course, finds the defense. He moves the bishop away, and he wants to give knight g5 check. This black king on f3 is so powerful. White cannot tolerate this. Yeah, so knight e2 played. We are explaining now. Knight g1 checkmate is threatened, so of course knight g5 will be played. Wow, and Peter, our chat is it's a close fight according to our chat. 56% say that Magnus Artemiev down to 1 second. Wow, again he plays with 2 seconds on the clock. Knight g5 check. King and 43% for a draw. This one is such a nail biter. It should be a draw, but Artemiev playing on seconds. Unbelievable stuff. Yeah, very, very unpleasant. I mean, this is super nasty. Absolutely super nasty. It's also because this king on h3, it's just, you always have to watch out for these mating threats. Yeah, that's the problem. You have to watch out for mating threats. You have to watch out for your h4 pawn. Now Magnus also psychologically, he gives the option that please, you want to get rid of this bishop, but I mean, knight king combo against the bishop pawn and with this compromised pawn structure, I think should be in long terms lost. So yeah, Artemiev refrains from it. He wants to somehow activate his king. Bishop f4, taking control. All right, well, the knight isn't coming back to h6 or d6 for a while, and black wants to step in with the king to g4. So white goes king h3, stopping that. Yeah, king h3, and it's still difficult. I mean, the position should be a draw. And at the end of it, Artemiev needs to make a mistake for Magnus to score this one. Otherwise, Artemiev just holds if he just keeps it as is. Yeah, now bishop g5. Yeah, he tries to. I mean, he feels that the knight endgame is drawn. Yeah, he doesn't have too much time, so he cannot calculate. It's all about feeling. But yeah, one does feel that if black gets, knight versus bishop, then it should be winning for him. But knight versus knight,
probably is a draw.
What do you think, Peter? Is Magnus going to trade here or keep the pressure going? Because it's also not so easy to keep the pressure going with knight h6 check ideas as well.
Well, I think he will keep. Yeah, probably will just move bishop c7. Because
Maybe
knight
after
h6
knight
check.
h6, you've got king e6, and suddenly the knight is getting trapped there.
Yeah. I mean, you have to watch out for this knight. And of course, white has the move bishop. You know, Magnus actually went for this. He finally felt like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna switch now. He takes, but this one looks very, very drawish now.
Yeah, one has to say that this looks very close to a draw now. And Peter, a lot of times in these positions, even certain king pawn endings will be a draw.
Yeah, I mean, if not for this Zugzwang that you are losing, like in the beginning that we already showed, highlighted, then it's a draw. Yeah.
Only thing white needs to watch out is to not allow black's king to g4, knight g5, and the computer says this is a blunder.
Wow, knight d8. Can he play knight d8? Yeah, knight d8 is played and knight Zugzwang.
He immediately finds it, and the knight on g5 is trapped.
Yeah, wow. This is amazing.
Oh my God.
Stuff. Yeah.
Peter, that was a mammoth defense that Artemiev put up till this point. And now what we've been talking about, black's king jumps onto g4 and eventually the h4 pawn will be lost.
Yeah, knight f3. Of course, now white still has knight e5 check. So black has to stop this. But
so you go knight c6?
Yeah, knight c6 or knight f7.
You can go knight c6, knight e7, defending the g6 pawn, and then knight f5 as well. He goes knight f7 to stop it.
Yeah, knight f7, king f2. I mean, this is unbelievable. Yeah, that Magnus felt right that maybe psychologically that opponent already put up a great defense. Yeah, and then he changed the direction. Yeah, he traded the bishops just to give completely new dynamic to the game. And Artem was still very low on the clock. But still, how does Magnus really benefit from this?
This is such a Magnus touch, Peter. Like you were saying, that we might think that it's a draw, but the game is just starting for Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe king f4. Yeah, maybe just king f4, and then Magnus goes king f4 and gets ready for knight h6, knight f5, and keeps on, this Zugzwang situation.
And you just don't. You're not in time anymore to get your king to h3. So king g2. There's knight h6 as you're pointing out. And if the knight moves away, then the king comes to g4. Let's just have that line on the board, Peter. So if king g2 here, then knight h6, the idea you were mentioning, with the idea to go knight f5. And once white sidesteps, knight comes to f5. How are you breaking still? For example, king g2.
Yes, I think we will be seeing this. Yeah, now king g2 on the board. Again, played by 1 second. Actually, played by 1 second by Artemiev. Yeah, knight d6. We might be seeing this king f2 because it's forced. Yeah, king f2.
And now knight f5, king g2. The question is, how can Magnus break through? Because king g4 still runs into knight e5.
Yeah. This is the defense. I mean, this is the dream. But somehow I have the feeling that it's already not holding. Yeah, king g2.
Is knight e5 possible now? Okay, he goes king g4.
Yeah, he goes king g4.
So knight e5 is under control, and now king f2 is the only move. And then maybe he goes king h3 and king e2, king g3, Peter. I think that's the way to go.
Yes. Now he's shouldering. Yeah, he's shouldering the king.
Unbelievable stuff. And if king e2, king g3, the e5 square is under control, and white is in Zugzwang, ends up losing the second pawn.
Yeah, and the knight wonderfully takes away the e3 square and controls the e5 square. Yeah, that's the dominating knight, and the rest will be taken care of by the king.
Peter, this is just some next level endgame play. I mean, yes, it was a draw for a very long time, and Artemiev did make a mistake, but it is something else to keep pushing your opponent, keep mounting the pressure until your opponent cracks. And Magnus Carlsen is just so good at that.
Yes, but it was also very, very unpleasant to defend it. Yeah, because it's never a draw, and your opponent can forever play on and always create chances. Yeah, it's not like a thematic rook endgame, for example, where you are pawn done and you know exactly that, okay, you know how to make a draw here. This is a completely new position. You have all the problems, and Magnus is enjoying so much. Yeah, now he puts the knight on g4 and he wants to use this Zugzwang. Yeah, he goes king g2, king e2,
And
king
king
g3.
e2, king g3. King e2, king g3 is just over on the spot. And if you move the knight, then anyways, king g3.
Yeah. And now it's just completely over. Yeah, the 2 pawns and yeah, knight e4 played, trying to lock out black's king, but Magnus will simply play g5, then move the knight back and reshuffle, and okay, this is now easily winning. Easily winning, which would actually mean that Magnus takes a 2-0 lead, yeah, 2-point lead in two games.
He needs a draw. He needs a draw in the next game to wrap up the semifinals.
Yeah, wow, I mean, this was such an important game. Yeah, the first one Magnus relatively easily won after Artemiev missed there some moves in complications, but this one was completely unnecessary from Vladislav. It looked like he was the one who was trying to put pressure. Magnus played very well, creating counter play and always keeping the dynamic balance with very serious play. And then suddenly when it looked like it's going to be a draw, it looked like it's a dead draw, then Artemiev, I think, blundered this bishop e5 idea, yeah, because he wanted to trade the knights, and now it's just completely hopelessly over.
Yeah, it's quite insane the way this game went. I mean, it started with the Artemiev having control over the position, an endgame where we thought Magnus would probably just bail out and go for a position that ends in a draw, but both players just kept playing, and eventually playing on seconds. Artemiev made a mistake in a position that he had held on for so long with some great defensive resource, but the pressure was just too much. And knight 8-6. Peter, we'll keep an eye out on this, but I think this one's going to end soon. The third game in the Jan-Andrei Asipienko match has started up, and it looks like a very interesting position. Do you want to get an update on that?
Yeah, it's a super sharp, I mean, a razor sharp Italian. This is the typical stuff, you know, that there are so many different aspects and ways to treat the Italian from white and from black. Yeah, and it seems like in this game, both sides wanted to create as much sharpness to the game as possible. First of all, Andrei, after losing the game with white, I think did not mind from the black side to go for a very sharp line where he might have chances, and he definitely has chances. Look at this powerful bishop on a7. Oops. Bishop on a7, eyeing down the diagonal on white's king. Black's knights are very powerful. However, the point is that white's knight is very strong, so he always has some knight e7, knight f5, which might come with a brutal force. He opts for bishop takes e5, giving up this bishop. I'm not liking this so much exactly for the fact that I love to go knight e7, knight f5. I don't know if this was necessary, but it's a very complicated position, so very difficult to say what is happening. But this bishop e5, queen e5, white cannot push f4 because white is this pawn is pinned. Yeah, this bishop and bishop f5. So that's the justification Jan wants to come with his queen.
Super complex game. Meanwhile, Peter, we've had a super chat from Bhagyashree who's saying that chess is portrayed as a game to defend the king. This game shows that why that piece is called king, and she's referring to Magnus versus the Magnus game against Artemiev, where Magnus maneuvered with his king all the way to enemy camp, and then eventually managed to win the h4 pawn. Indeed, a king is a piece in the endgame.
Yeah, this we know exactly, and now Magnus is making progress. Yeah, g3, he's about to free up his king, yeah, because his only problem was that his king was cut out. Now after king f3, king h3 is happening, black's king reaching h2 and then promoting the pawn. I don't see any intrigue happening here anymore. King f4, a desperate attempt, yeah, that g2 is a mistake, because then suddenly knight g5 check, king h2, knight f3 check would save the day for white. But there is no reason to fall for this. Just move the knight to some decent square. Like, hang on, the pawn is hanging. No, I mean, you can also start with it. I mean, first you start with h4 because this knight is not hanging. Yeah, I'm assuming that Magnus has already calculated this. Yeah, just to h4 on the board.
So king f5, you just go g2.
Yeah, king f5, you go g2, and otherwise you already move the knight next. Yeah, knight g5 check. Now king g2 will come, and the pawn is marching.
So king g2, king f5, and then the h pawn marches down the board.
Yes.
And if king g4 instead, Peter?
After king g2, the king g4.
You just move the king, yeah? Or maybe not. Maybe knight e3. No, you can't even give knight e3 check.
Yeah, now, okay, there are so many options, but yeah, knight g5 check. Yeah, that's why Magnus is spending some little time, but okay, this is completely winning. Magnus down to 35 seconds. Yeah, this king g2, king g4, still there is something to calculate.
Let's take a look, Peter. We have our live board with us. Let's go on to the analysis board. So king g2, you can't take on f5 like you pointed out. h3 would win. So king g4, trying to stop the h pawn from advancing. Seems like the only way for white to keep the game going. He's gone for king g4. And how can Magnus convert this now?
Yeah,
H3.
he pushes h3. Yeah, knight takes h3. He wants to give the check and use that this knight is completely ugly there. Yeah, so knight h3. This was one of the lines I was actually calculating like this, that king h2.
And knight f4 runs into knight g2 check.
Yes, yeah, this was the key.
So if knight g5 here, then you go knight g5 here? Yeah,
then you just go g2 and knight f3 check. You go king h1, and after you bring your knight to, you bring your knight to e5 and
deflect the white knight. So if king h3, you just go knight c4 and white is helpless. Can white actually go king g3 here? King g3, king f2.
Okay, king g3, knight f5, and then white will try to go knight g1. But
yes.
Knight g1, king h2. Yeah, it's Zugzwang. Yeah, and
this
Magnus
is
won.
Amazing stuff. That was an amazing technique shown by Magnus. And with that, he takes a 2-point lead in his semi-final match against Artemiev. Artemiev has to win game 3 on demand to keep the match going. Otherwise, it's Magnus Carlsen through to the finals. A brilliant endgame technique here shown by him. Peter, let's jump to our other game, which is on, a very important one. Currently, Andrei Asipienko is trailing Jan Nepomniachtchi after a disastrous loss in round 2, which really saw Jan crushing through Andrei's defenses. And now the score is 1.5 to half. And Peter, we've got a very sharp middle game.
Yeah, we have a very, very sharp middle game. And now Andrei is spending a lot of time. He feels like, I have blundered so much already in this match. This is such a sharp position. I want to make sure that my decision will be right, but such a complex position. I'm not sure. The big question is, do you want to play a move like queen g3, or does it do anything? Because, okay, it's a very tempting move to play, but it runs into knight f6 check, yeah? And king g7 would run into knight h5 fork. Then you already have to calculate, like you have to go to h8, then queen h5 check, oh my God. But actually queen h5 check, king g7 is maybe not the end of the world. Just to illustrate how completely crazy things are, white could eventually jump with the knight back to g4, threatening the knight, threatening queen h6 check, but black has all kinds of knight f3 or knight h3 checks himself. For example, there is this knight h3, king f1, queen takes g2 idea as well. Yeah, and the king g2, knight f4 check, you take the queen back, but maybe you can even, trap the queen. But now the queen is hanging. No, you have queen d3 check winning. Okay, I'm just talking about emotions. Yeah, that's my talking. I cannot calculate at the same time. But rook e2, then queen e2, king e2, knight f4 check would allow the win. Yeah, so there is so much to calculate. There is this move queen g3 with a complete provocation. Yeah, that if the move knight f6 check does not win for white, then you feel like maybe should I calculate this? Very, very complex.
And actually, if Jan Nepomniachtchi wins this game, Peter, the match is over.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, so there is a lot of pressure on Andrei. Definitely a lot of pressure, but he also has chances. Yeah, he has chances. The big question also that, do you have time to play something like c6 if you could disbalance the knight, but one has the feeling that then immediately white jumps at you with queen h5. queen g4, queen h5. Do you have time to play the stabilizing move king g7? It's also a very big question. It feels like it shouldn't really work.
King g7 might run into queen g4.
Yeah, but queen g4 still runs into queen g3. But that's why I'm saying it's such a complete madness. Very difficult to make a move, and also very difficult to calculate your alternatives.
Peter, let's take a look at that forcing line that you were mentioning after queen g3, this knight f6 stuff, because both players have slowed down. It's also a very critical moment for Andre, so he's definitely looking at this line. It threatens a lot of scary stuff on the board. The f2 pawn, and Andre decides not.
Sorry, he has played the move rook a8. I mean, I feel like this is a move that does absolutely nothing to the position. Yeah, we also see now the engine bar jumping like, okay, white is now basically winning, but I just don't get this move. I mean, rook a8 does
because
nothing.
It also, Peters, let's not forget all these lines when knight f6 check was coming. Now this rook on e8 will be hanging, which makes me feel like go queen g4 now. Hit that knight on g5. Now queen g3 doesn't work at all because we've got knight f6 hitting that rook on e8. So queen g4, you've got to go what, queen g7?
Well, but if you have to play queen g7, then basically, if you lose the momentum with black, yeah, then one has the feeling that the position is just terrible because white has done everything under control. So, for example, queen g4, yeah, it would be desirable to go queen g3, but as you said, this still maybe black has to try queen g3.
But is it possible? Let's take a look at some variations, Peter. Queen g3, one had a feeling that knight f6 and you stop there. But of course, f2 pawn is under attack as well. So you can't go king g7 because of knight h5. King h8 has to be played. And first you go queen h5 and pick up the rook with the check?
Well, but I would be very happy. I mean, this rook means absolutely nothing to me. I feel like here, any minor piece is so much more powerful than the rook. I mean, imagine
chooses the move queen h5, not queen g4, but queen h5.
Yeah, he goes queen h5. He wants to create mating net because actually queen g3, bishop takes f2 check is just nothing. White still has this safe square h1 for his king, and he really wants to now deliver some checkmate. Queen g7 played. I don't know. It's I mean this move rook a8. I cannot understand. I don't get it.
Now, especially after you've moved your queen back to g7, at least white has a breather that f2 isn't attacked. But he always needs to watch out for these checks with the knight on h3 or f3. Currently, both squares are under control. Peter, how can Jan continue in this? Does he even have the time to get greedy and take on c7, or would you not even consider that move?
No, in this position, I already considered it. Yeah, I was thinking about this, that I could actually maybe take. Intuitively, I don't want to take it. But there is also the argument that if you take it, you can after come back and your knight on d5 will be an eternal piece. Yeah, this is the attraction. It's not really the pawn, but just that I will get access to the d5 square forever. But to be honest, I would love to play something else. I would love to play. But
also, if you play something else, then that might give black the opportunity to go c6 and kick out that knight from d5 as well.
Yeah, but exactly this is what I don't understand. That why on earth black, if he already feels like white doesn't have now I understand, because he couldn't play c6, then after queen g5, queen g7, knight e7 would be checkmate. That was the reason why he felt the need to put the rook on e8. Now I understand at least.
But he could have gone queen g3 instead of queen g7. He doesn't need to walk into a self-mate with knight e7 in those positions, no?
Yes, of course. But basically, he probably didn't like this queen g3 operation because of all this knight f6. And white can also just, for example, maybe protect with rook e2. And then where does it go? Now, at least I understand, yeah, that was the justification. Jan going for the move king f1. Basically, I felt like knight takes c7 and king f1 are the two candidates. And the big question is that after c6, how does white continue?
I think he just wants to move the knight away, maybe to f4 and start picking up the h4 pawn. So let's just have c6 on the board because it feels like a very natural move. You want to kick out this strong knight from this outpost in the center. After c6, let's say knight f4.
Yes, c6, knight f4 would come. And the knight on g5 is stuck. Queen on g7 is stuck. Black will need to break somehow with d6, d5. I mean, you really need to break. Yeah, d5, and okay, if I get d5 in, then at least, okay, maybe you just take ed5.
Yeah, maybe you just take, because rook e1, at least the e file is still under white's control for the time being.
Yes. Yeah, but I still feel I had to play d5 because otherwise, if you just, I give you 2 moves takes and then knight h5 comes, you will win the game. So I have to do something. But it's looking good for, I mean, it's just looking good for white. It's opposite colored bishop position, and usually whoever gets the initiative going has the upper hand, and it feels like now with this grip of bishop on f5 and queen h5 and forcing black's queen back on g7, white has the momentum on his side.
And also white at any point can even pick up the h4 pawn. He doesn't have to rush with it because it's a forever weakness, but it's also a pawn that's weak for life. And you can even pick it up, let's say, on the next move if black doesn't attack the knight with c6. And I'm also failing to see an alternative here instead of c6. What do you think are the moves that Andre is looking at here?
Well, part of c6, I really don't see any other.
On the board?
Yeah,
on
c6,
the board. And
yeah,
knight
c6,
f4
knight
play.
f4. Yeah, now how to deal with this h4 pawn? Yeah, because it's not just the pawn, but that queen h4, knight h5 is a deadly combination of
You
moves.
can't even pick up the c3 pawn. The knight on g5 is hanging. And Andrei Asipienko down to about 3.5 minutes. If Jan Nepomniachtchi wins this game and it does look promising, then he's already made it through to the finals. And we do have an interesting update from Tad, Peter, that instead of c6, wow, Peter, look at the move that, that Andre had. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, rook e6. I mean, basically, rook e6 is the move after which you fell from your chair, yeah, because rook e6, immediately once you spot this move, you say like, wow, yes, exactly, that's what I need. Black gets counterplay with rook h6, and bishop e6, f e6 is absolutely no go. Then immediately black gets crushing attack. So with rook e6, black immediately creates counterplay for himself. I believe that white should anyway be better, but Andre plays the most human way. Yeah, he plays this c6, knight f4, d5 as I was kind of mentioning as the first reaction, that this would be natural. But we felt like also ed5, besides even, okay, e5, you have bishop b8, because almost it felt like e5 is also very nice, but simply ed5 is primitive. Yeah, primitive and good. I mean, there is no need to do any fancy business now.
So after c takes d5, you can actually even take back with the knight, and knight e7, that threat that you've been talking about, really becomes a scary one in the position with the queen on h5.
Yeah, but the knight's basically simply lost for black. I just don't see what to do. Maybe you have to play bishop b8, try to distract this knight, but then maybe already you can even just collect the pawn on h4. I mean, white, yeah, bishop b8 on the board. Andre plays
h4, get greedy, why not?
Very natural human chess. Yeah, Andre is trying to play all these logical moves, but they don't help.
Maybe there's one tactic, Peter. Queen h4, bishop f4, queen h6. I'm threatening queen h1, and if king g1, knight h3.
Yes, okay, I have bishop h3, so I will not panic.
But let's show it anyway, because it's pretty.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you need to play like this. Yeah, you are creating chance, but yeah, you know, the reason why my heart was still kind of calm that I saw that I have bishop h3. I have
Peter, I'm always so excited about these lines and these tactics, and you just refute it in like 1 second. That's not fair.
Well, but still, it's very legitimate. Yeah, bishop takes f4 had been played. Bishop f4, queen f4, cd5 on the board. Rook a d1. We might be seeing queen h6, but since both sides see that bishop h3 is possible, but now queen h6 check is possible there. Yeah, hang on. Let's take a look at this now. Queen h6 is slightly different.
Let's point out that king g1 runs into knight h3. This was the tactics. Yes. So you can't defend the mate with king g1, but your move bishop h3.
Yes, but now suddenly things change, because already you captured cd5, and now you have the move queen a6 check.
Oh, wow.
And it might be still better for white, but definitely it feels like black has chances to survive this. So hang on, after rook a d1.
It's really crazy how suddenly the queen transfers from one end of the board to another, and these kind of things are so easy to miss. It just feels like in situations like this, the board feels really big, because from queen h6 you went all the way to a6, and trust me, it's super easy to miss that stuff.
Yeah, it's especially because the pawn was on c6. Yeah, the sixth rank was never open yet. Yeah, it just opened up after the recapture cd5.
He goes queen f6
But-
instead, and that's kind of surprising. Maybe he has the same threat, but why not go queen h6, forcing bishop h3?
Yeah, now queen g4 is so much more natural because now you had the move queen g4 and you are starting f4.
And bishop d3. If you go queen a6, there's bishop d3, rook e1, king e1. Maybe
Well,
not
you
so
also have king g1 now. Yeah, now
Simply.
queen a6 does nothing. Yeah, Andre goes back queen g7.
But Peter, queen f6, very surprising move by Andre, no?
Absolutely. I mean, it felt like he gave the momentum, but hang on. Jan is now also hurrying with takes, rook d5. I mean, he was so much up on the clock. Why is he in such a rush? What about your queen h6 move? Okay, white at least has queen takes g5, but this is not exactly what we want, no?
Let's just show that line. It's pretty. So queen h6, you're threatening mate, and king g1 runs into rook e1, so you still don't want to make that move. But your defense, Peter, queen takes g5 this time, and it ends in a rook pawn ending. But I think this is also quite unpleasant for black with the a5 pawn hanging.
Yeah, but still, I mean, rook endgames have this drawish tendency, and after rook c8, I feel like, yeah, it's of course a very, very unpleasant endgame, but still, maybe this is the best what black can hope for.
So queen h6, is there another defense instead of going into the endgame? Can white, because black's king is also kind of weak, but queen h1 is such a nasty threat. So rook d5, we are looking at this line with queen h6. Peter, let's just have that on the board.
Yeah, queen h6. I mean, Andre down to 30 seconds. I'm expecting him to. What? He doesn't go for queen. He goes for knight e4. I mean, this is a
strange.
and queen e4 designs on the
Oh my
spot.
God. And this is over. Rook d8.
Wow.
But Peter, this just goes on to show that, yeah, this is not Andre Asipienko. I mean, he doesn't miss this kind of stuff, yeah? And he had time as well.
No, not so much. He only had already 20 seconds, but
This is tactics that he would never miss, no?
Yeah, but the problem is that he was already kind of worse, and he was done on the score. Yeah, I mean, Jan was already leading, so a lot of nerves, and you're already, just completely out of your mind. Yeah, and also what happened, this incredible chance in the first game, and now it finally looks like a complete knockout. Yeah, Jan just crushes the match with a 2.5 win, and he moves into the finals.
This is unbelievable stuff. And it just ended so suddenly, Peter, because we were looking at all these complications with queen h6, Asipienko going for queen f6 instead of queen h6 at the earlier opportunity as well. And it ending with this little tactic missed by black. Let's just show it one more time. Black picks up the queen on e4 after knight e4. Let's just go through the moves. Rook to d8, queen f8, and black would pick up the queen and then pick up the bishop, pick up the rook, and end up with an extra piece in the endgame. And with that, Jan Nepomniachtchi wraps up his semifinal in just 3 games with a game to spare and advances to the finals for an encore of the World Championship match. Is it going to be Magnus Carlsen or will Artemiev strike back? And we've got liftoff.
Yeah, we have liftoff, but I also have the feeling like, the chat is really thinking like, okay, why is Peter here? I mean, he's the expert, and he was telling that this match is very, very shaky. Nobody knows who exactly is the favorite, and Jan wins 2.5. Magnus is leading 2-0. But the games, I think the games showed that this was much, much closer than what the scoreboard shows.
Absolutely. We've got our finalist, Jan Nepomniachtchi, in the studio.
Very bad, so I can't think. I just I only rely on intuition, and I can't calculate any lines. But so far it brings me some good results. But yeah, I'm afraid it can't last forever.
Has it been challenging to play chess today, Jan?
Well, every day is challenging, and today, I would say was especially.
Definitely. Now, there will be a final. It looks like it will be against Magnus Carlsen. What's your expectations to play now the final starting tomorrow?
I don't think so. This is probably not the thing that bothers me in any way. So.
Can I ask you how you are, Jan?
More or less fine, but probably things could be better. Yeah, but I'm trying.
Obviously, if it is Magnus Carlsen in the big final, many people will maybe wonder if you will feel some hunger for revenge after World Championship match. Is that at all in your head?
I think the revenge for the World Championship match can be only, satisfied in another World Championship match.
Of course. Well, Jan, congratulations so much on winning 2 games today and being in the final.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ian Nepomniachtchi, first player to reach the final in the Airthings Masters. We're going to jump into the semi-final match between Magnus Carlsen and Vladislav Artemiev. And Magnus, he only needs a draw in this game to be ready for that.
Jan Nepomniachtchi makes it to the finals of the Airthings Masters, and it all comes down to this game for Vladislav Artemiev. He has to win on demand. A draw is not enough, and he's playing with the black pieces. Peter, that task feels like it's next to impossible.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but he has to try, and we see that immediately he tries to mix things up. Magnus goes G3. He doesn't want any direct force stuff. His idea is to play a very solid game. But now after d4, of course, black is not playing d5, after which we would get a completely symmetrical position. But he immediately tries to break the symmetry with c5. Magnus doesn't want to be provoked. He wants to rely on his central pawn with c3. Queen a5 played immediately, also very, very typical way of, you want to keep on harassing white with this idea of c takes d4, and then please take on c5, yeah, or please push d5, because then immediately there is some disbalance in the position and there is a lot to fight for. But Magnus declines this. He says, you know what, I have knight d2, and after c takes d4, I have the move knight b3, kicking the queen away. And afterwards, I will still get my cemented position with c takes d4. Super solid stuff. Yes, the knight on b3 is not ideal, but white is now not really playing for an advantage. He just wants to have a stable position. And if with stable play, he can even get an advantage, the upper hand. Of course, it's wonderful. It's more than welcome. But for Artemiev now, the big question is, how does he keep this tension going? C takes d4 will follow next.
C takes d4 coming in next, the knight on b3 attacking the queen on a5. Peter, the one thing that I've noticed in Jan's interviews, whenever there's a question about the finals in this Airthings Masters of facing Magnus and about it being associated with what happened at the World Championship match, he's always said that, there's no comparison, and he'd always want things to be better in the World Championship match compared to anything else. And that's, of course, very understandable. And I want to ask you, because I remember reading when Fabi had his match against Magnus, once the match was over, I can't recall which interview it was, but that for months, and because of the exhaustion, the strain, the emotional and mental toll that it takes on the player, Fabi didn't even want to look at the games. He pretty much didn't speak about the match to his trainer, Kazim Zanov. The games were not really, I think it was Kazim's interview where I read this, that it was not a discussion that happened. What was it like with Jan after the match? Were there discussions, were there analysis of the game? What went wrong?
Well, I think that this kind of questions only Jan can answer, because it's very private already how he wants to deal with this defeat. Definitely, of course, when you lose a match, yeah, you want to forget about it. I mean, from my side, I can talk about my experience. Yeah, I also played this World Championship match with Kramnik. It ended 7-7, but it meant by losing the last game that I lost the chance to becoming the champion. Vladimir kept on to his title. And I also, to be honest, I also didn't analyze. I mean, up till today, I did not analyze my games. It's just, it doesn't, of course, you have the memory, you have so much emotions. You feel like, so sharing many of those thoughts, but now really analyzing those games, I know exactly what was finally the decisive moment, and I don't feel like I need to analyze it. It had nothing to do with any chess things. Yeah, it's all about nerves in such moments, and probably everybody reacts differently. But reading this interview by Kasim about the match, I very much related to myself. I understood him perfectly. Yeah, you just it's very difficult to to analyze, and also the way how Fabi lost that match. Yeah, that okay, it was a very close match, and finally in the tiebreaks you lose. What do you really have to try to play the doctor, or it's just better to leave it as it is?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because there's so much more at play than just chess in a match, where in the World Championship match, psychology, nerves, and everyone has a different way of dealing with it. Peter, in your case, I mean, it was a different time. The format was so different, right? There wasn't even the tie breaks, and you had taken the lead in the match. It was so close. And I remember studying that match and seeing that first game, the Marshall one as well. Is it still got those same feelings when you think about it, or now it's just, it's something that doesn't get those thoughts or memories back again? Or is it like it was just yesterday?
No, it doesn't feel like it was yesterday. No, definitely not. But I think I and my wife Sophie, we took the right decision. Yeah, because we had an incredible vacation afterwards. Yeah, after this match in Mexico, it was basically our most beautiful vacation. It was just unbelievable. Yeah, we spent 4 days in Mexico City. First of all, we did not know what to expect from Mexico City. Of course, we came to Mexico City because we were expecting it to be interesting, but it's so amazing. Yeah, it became one of our favorite cities. Just incredible what kind of wonderful times we had there. Afterwards, wow. we moved on to the Maya Riviera, to the Cancun area, and we visited Chichen Itza. We visited, Tulum and all this incredible Maya culture. And also in Mexico City, of course, we moved out to Teotihuacan. I was warned. People told me that, don't climb the pyramids at 12 o'clock in the morning. I mean, in the biggest heat, I was saying, come on, I just finished the World Championship match. I want to enjoy life. I was training for half a year. No, in fact, more than half a year, because the match was postponed. It was like 1.5 years or 2 years. Yeah, more than 2 years after I qualified for the World Championship match. So finally, that was the moment when I could release all the tension. And I was climbing all the pyramids. I was running up and down, like crazy. And what happened? Just a few hours later, I was completely dead. Yeah, I just couldn't move at all. The sun really hit me. But still, I mean, it was worth it. It was just brilliant.
That sounds amazing. And I've met your wife, Sophie. I think it was in Biel, and it was a short meeting, but it was wonderful meeting her. And that just goes on to show the amount, how important for all these great players who are fighting for World Championship title, the support around them is. And when we were in Dubai, for Magnus, it was his family. His father was there. His sister was there. For Jan, it was his girlfriend was there, as well as his second and manager were there. So these creating this atmosphere of comfort is so important. And then this support system has a very big role to play once the match is over as well, regardless of how the result went, and maybe more if it doesn't go your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it's very important. But I also remember very well that it was announced that Kramnik would play the Russian Super Final starting like 2 weeks after the match ended. And while having the vacation and these lovely holidays in Mexico, we were like every day counting like, wow, I mean, Kramnik is supposed to play in 2-3 days in the Russian Super Final. I don't envy him at all. But then came the news, Kramnik refused to participate. He said, no, he needs a rest. And that's when I got really angry. I mean, okay, it would have been so nice seeing him suffer there in the Russian Super Finals, but Kramnik was professional enough to refuse it at the end.
Peter, I was just taking a look at our chat, and there's a really nice suggestion by Jay Wells. He says, Leko should do a book like Anand's Mind Master. I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, I actually have these thoughts, but I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy. I'm also thinking about, because it's not entirely clear for me which format is better, to do a video about it. Yeah, because then I can explain everything maybe even easier than write everything down. But I'm definitely thinking about it, and I feel like it should be done. And that would be also a good way for me to, confront what has happened in this match. And I can also, give all the emotions, because all the emotions I'm still carrying with me. I mean, I remember basically almost every single minute of the preparations and everything, but I haven't faced it yet.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I meant when I said how fresh, when I was asking you about how fresh the emotions and feelings of the match. I think these kind of matches and these kind of moments in one's career and one's life are never forgotten, no matter how much time passes. Peter, it's really nice to hear your thoughts on this, and we all hope that you either decide to do a book or a video, whatever it is. I think we would all love it. But for now, our audience, our spectators, our viewers do have the chance to play against Peter in the Banter Blitz that's coming up after the event. So guys, definitely keep an eye out on that. Meanwhile, Peter, while we were chatting, there's been some progress in the game. So let's get back to that.
Yeah, there is a progress, but I feel like, nothing really changed in regard that Magnus is trying to be as solid as possible. And Artemiev is really looking to create some chances. Yeah, he refrained from moving his d pawn. Yeah, he doesn't want any of this symmetry. So basically, I'm counting that he might be opting for some b6, because even if, but the problem is that after b6, he does allow the trade of queens, which he does not really want. But there is some dynamic with the bishop on a6. Probably the disturbing move is bishop f1. Yeah, if white just retreats with the bishop to f1, you will fall back with the bishop to b7, and then white moves the bishop back to g2, highlighting that, I just want a castle, I just want to play bishop d2, and okay, I'm absolutely safe, I'm totally solid. So we can actually take it from where we left. Knight d2, cd, knight b3, queen a4. Already a fancy move, trying to keep as much life as possible in the position. cd4, knight c6, Magnus opting for e3. Very important for Magnus that he does not want to commit his knight to f3. He wants to try to target this queen on a4. That's why he opts for the move e3, getting ready for knight e2, knight c3. And this is what happened in the game. Knight f6, knight e2, castles, knight c3, queen a6, queen e2, and b6 on the board. And let's see how Magnus will react to this.
So b6 played, black decides that he doesn't want to trade on e2, allowing the king to get into the center and the rook to come out quickly. After b6, Peter, white definitely doesn't want to take queen a6, because then bishop a6 is not only a developing move, but also comes in the way of white being able to go short castle. So if not queen a6, can white consider going short castle immediately, or does that run into something unpleasant like queen e2, knight e2, bishop a6, rook e1, knight b4 stuff?
Exactly, yeah, that's definitely something you don't want to allow, because queen e2, knight e2, bishop a6, rook e1, knight b4 might win the game, yeah, because there's
bishop a8, I'm not really sure, but bishop a8, maybe knight c2 anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, black will get back the exchange. He will get the light squared bishop. I mean, you even don't want to look at this. From white side, Magnus plays the more natural move, bishop d2. For me, it was not exactly obvious if he wants to play bishop d2 or he trades and goes for this bishop f1, as I mentioned. Clearly, you don't want to lose the momentum with queen takes a6. So in this regard, I actually prefer Magnus's move with bishop d2. You don't want to signal your opponent that maybe you are worried of these queens or whatever. But Artemiev is playing very, very interestingly, and he creates some life. Yeah, queen e2 is played.
Yes. Now you could, knight e2. That was the other point of the move, bishop d2, right? It takes away all these knight jumps from b4 as well. At some point, those could be unpleasant. So bishop d2 is a nice move. What happens if black goes, Peter, you're pointing out the move a5. I was also thinking about bishop a6.
Yeah, well, I actually feel like this a5 is very, very important, because I want to target immediately this knight with a4, and also your move bishop a6. Once the pawn is on a5, it's even more natural to me. But Artemiev goes for bishop a6. Magnus immediately goes bishop c3. And now we might be actually seeing already some d5 and then some knight e4 ideas. But d5 probably white will play f3, trying to stop knight e4. In any case, Artemiev is creating some chances, and I think Magnus is not entirely happy with what has happened here.
He almost looks like he's sleeping and playing. I mean, take a look at Magnus on the camera. I don't know what kind of body language reading we could do from that pose, but looks ultra relaxed currently. Bishop c3 on the board. And Peter, you were mentioning that with the black pieces, yes, it's not a crazy line that Artemiev has gone for in a must-win situation, but very often, exactly that's the kind of technique that backfires, especially when you're playing against someone like Magnus. You have to win. You do some stuff on the board, try and create some complicated lines, but very often that backfires. Instead, Artemiev's approach of just playing slow chess, of just keeping the game alive, seems to have paid off so far. Yes, it does look visually like it should be equal, but black keeps a little pressure because white still hasn't finished development. The bishop on a6 stops the king from e1 going sharp castle. Bishop c3 on the board. Peter, what are the moves that come to your mind? You mentioned d5. Should we take a look at that? Artemiev chooses another option. He goes for the move e6 instead.
Yeah, and I like e6 because he wants to use the d5 square, and he's trying to, I mean, he needs to play for a win. The problem with d5 is that, yeah, it does have this idea of knight e4, but if, for example, white stops it with f3, then it will be so difficult to create any real chances, while white will put the king to f2 or to d2, bring the rook, finally reshuffle his bad knight from b3 via c1 to d3, and he will be super solid. With the move e6, black wants to keep this dynamics of eventually going knight d5, maybe not immediately, but also after rook a8, maybe knight e7, knight d5. I mean, there are all kinds of dynamic options still available. I'm liking this choice, but the big question is, yeah, king d2, and look at this according to the engine bar. After king d2, there is something. I don't exactly understand what the machine is claiming here.
Super hard to say. So king d2, white wants to take out the rook on the next move. Rook to c1 is the idea. Why is our eval bar loving black so much? Rook c8 runs into rook c1, so don't really see a follow-up to that. Peter, what about your idea that you mentioned earlier of trying to go d5 and then give a check on e4 now that the king is on d2?
Yeah, but anyway, white will play f3, so I don't really feel what is the big benefit of this d5 f3. There is only one more break in the position with e5, and that will always be met by d takes e5, and white will sit on the d4 square with all his pieces. We already mentioned that, yeah, white is also threatening to reroute his knight to d3, and then black will lose any momentum, which is based on the fact that white's knight on b3 is quite ugly. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, I do feel that black should be very, very happy with the outcome of the opening, but white is super solid. And in no way I feel that, yeah, rook c8, knight c1 is played. Yeah, Magnus immediately wants to get this knight to d3. Is the move knight e5 some kind of an idea? Can black not try to play knight a5 maybe? Let me try this.
So knight c4 is a big threat, and b3 just feels like it might be too loose, but maybe does white have time to go b3 here?
Well, yeah, b3, luckily with knight on c1 you are still covering, yeah, the knight. But
it looks very scary.
It's very scary and a very big long-term weakness. I don't know exactly how to use it, but one really gets the feeling that there is something to play for now.
So then you think that better than b3 would be to trade on a5, or just ignore everything and go knight d3?
No, I don't think anything. I mean, I was just mentioning that, yeah, knight e5 is kind of very tempting, and maybe you have to play the move b3. Yeah, maybe you have to, because giving up the bishop, maybe it's possible, but I do feel like it allows too much dynamics for black. Yeah, because I do have knight b3. Then maybe some rook b8. Also, I mean, no, sorry, I already calculated this. That then you can take
comes in, yeah,
and enter. Yeah, this is a problem. So, I mean, Magnus is a bit shaky. I mean, he tries to be super solid, but his play is far from impressive. I mean, it's not so harmonious what he's doing. But if he gets out, I mean, if he gets two tempests with knight d3, rook h1, then we'll be saying that, wow, yeah, everything made perfect sense. But at the moment, I'm little bit worried for white.
One almost gets the feeling that after getting a 2-0 lead in this match, maybe Magnus has just taken this game slightly too lightly. He's gone for d5. So Artemiev eyeing a knight e4 check at some point, and also just getting a good grasp on the center. Peter, after a move like knight d3, will he go knight e4?
I guess so, but there is also, I mean, knight e4, knight g4, and those are enough reasons for white not to
go f3.
Yeah, not to let this happen and go f3 for safety. And the big question is now, because we kind of reached this position, we could have reached this position from different move orders, that what is this that the evaluation bar says that black can seize the momentum? Yeah, it's quite interesting that according to computer there is something in the air, because if white gets knight d3 there, this moment will pass. So I'm wondering if maybe some incredible idea with e65, but
can black try and get knight e8, knight d6, knight c4?
Yeah, but how?
Too slow, huh?
Okay, who knows? Yeah, knight d3, knight d6, b3. It's the question, what is the follow-up? Yeah, if and then knight b5, you are in time.
But there's still bishop b2, rook c1, no?
Yeah, I have bishop b2. Yeah,
it's not so easy.
Yeah,
and then
not-
you've got a4 at some point, maybe later.
Yeah, if you get stability, but yeah, definitely one has. But Artemiev down to 2 minutes. I mean, he feels that there should be something, that there is some chance to get initiative. He's spending his time, but what exactly is it?
But Peter, the clock's going to tell in this position. I mean, unless there's something, and I don't think it's something super direct. If it's just about building the advantage, he's down to almost a minute and a half. Magnus has 10.5 minutes, and he plays the slow rook e8, but clearly intending to go e5 next. And Magnus just blitzes out, well, the natural knight d3, stopping e5, and Artemiev insisting knight d7. He wants to break in the center with e5.
Yeah, he wants to break, but this one now already looks like Magnus stabilized. Rook a c1. Magnus does not want to think at all. Yeah, he just feels like his position is so solid that nothing can happen to him. That's the impression one is getting, and who can fault him? It looks like black's only way is to break with e5, but then this terrible bishop on c3 comes to life. Yeah, that's the reason why black actually doesn't really want to push e65 unless it's really so incredibly strong. Is there a chance to try to combine it with taking on d3 and then knight e5 check some computerish way? But how to do that? Because I definitely don't want to give up my bishop first. And if we start with e5, you might take with the knight on e5. Knight e5. Yeah, e5 on the board.
E5 was always incoming with the last couple of moves. So let's take a look at some of the lines. Peter, what happens with a simplification in the center if white decides to dissolve it? Knight e5 played. So knight takes e5, d takes e5, and knight e5.
Yeah, d5, knight e5 with the threat of knight c4 check. So one would...
So if you go bishop e5, knight d4, then black at least has got the bishop pair. And how do you evaluate that position though after knight e5, bishop e5, knight d4?
Well, okay, if white can just stabilize, then probably it should be fine.
Magnus finally sits up, Peter. He finally sits up for the game. He's been looking quite bored throughout, but I think now he realizes that it's time to wrap things up and probably feels that the worst is behind him.
Well, I don't know. I have the feeling that he was actually even careless. He did not really feel the danger, and he is not consulted by engine. He doesn't know the engine bar, and he made all the logical moves. Yeah, it made perfect sense to him that he's solid enough. He's not playing for advantage. So I don't think that it's connected. It's more like he has to make now a choice, and he has to watch out because there are all kinds of tactics. Yeah, like after b3, the question is, can actually black play a move like knight takes f3? It seems like it's not working, but you definitely have to calculate all these possibilities, like bishop takes f3, then bishop e2, you can take bishop e2, and finally after rook takes e3 check, you have bishop d3 or king d2, so it doesn't seem to work.
But you can start with after b3, can't you start with bishop e2, king e2?
But then it's a different story. Yeah, then knight f3 you can take on g7 first. Yeah. So lot to calculate, but also b3 allows knight d3 move, which is also very, very annoying. So yeah, Magnus finally, of course, takes on e5. He has to keep things simple.
I think this is the most solid approach. You take on e5 and plant that knight on d4.
Exactly. Yeah, bishop e5, knight d4, and if you, I mean, okay, first, of course, after bishop e5, you would have taken on c8 first. Because just to highlight this, that after bishop e5, bishop takes e5, knight d4 would be a terrible mistake immediately due to bishop takes d4, and then problems on the e file. But he, of course, would have taken on c8. Yeah, after bishop
And
e5.
then gone knight d4.
Yeah, takes, and then knight d4, and it's complete blockade. So takes on c1, bishop e5. Vladislav wants to make sure that knight d4 is not possible. Yeah, Magnus protects the second rank. Yeah, it's a very nice protection. Now already he can go knight d4, and after bishop d4, e d4, rook e2 check, he can just move his king to c3 or to d1. And the rook protects on the second rank. Yeah, it looks like, Artemiev created very nice play, but he was just not able to.
So king e2, bishop d4, you've still got e4 though, no?
Yeah, bishop d4, and okay, it's also the right choice from Artemiev that, okay, there was just nothing better. Knight d4 was threatened with total draw, and after this e4, d4, fe4, you can try to claim that, with the blockading bishop, I will have the better bishop. I will try to squeeze something out, but of course it's objectively
So hard
a draw.
to imagine, Peter, that that's anything either. This also feels like a total draw. Bishop d4, and Magnus is having a bit of a think here. Is there an alternative to e4? What else could he be thinking about?
Yeah, good question. Maybe king d3, maybe giving up the pawn with bishop e3 and then forcing
But then
d4.
at least d4 you have.
Yeah, and then f4, and then I open up the bishop and I'm ready to activate the rook to c2, and it might be nice compensation position, but it's a tough, really a tough kind of decision.
What do you
But the
think? What do
point
you
is
think
that this move e4, d takes e4, fe4 is kind of ugly. Of course, it's very drawish, and you can just sit and probably make a draw, but you also don't enjoy playing something like this, then you might have to suffer.
If you had to, knowing Magnus and his style of play, if you had to just take a prediction or a guess, which line will Magnus choose to keep things under control? Will it be to keep the material, not give up the pawn with a move like e4? Or will he try to keep the dynamic balance by giving up the e-pawn, but keeping activity with king d3?
Yeah, I also noticed that actually after king d3, bishop takes e3, I can even play f4 immediately. I don't need to lose time on rook e2. Opening up the bishop immediately, hitting the d5 pawn, and bishop g1 is met by bishop takes d5. Can I take it? Yes, I think I can, because it was also very tricky. For example, bishop g1, bishop takes d5, rook d8, and king c4 runs into b5 check, and king e4 runs into f5 check, but luckily it's not possible. So it seems like I'm just in time to defend this position comfortably.
Magnus is calculating these lines. Artemiev down to a minute. Magnus has got enough time to see what is the defense that he wants to go for. E4, as you're saying, he goes for e4. So he decides to keep the pawn intact and says he's just willing to suffer this for a while, but believes that he'll hold it.
Yeah, I mean, he of course should hold it. He will put the pawn on. Okay, black will have to now has to decide, does he go bishop e5 or does he go bishop c5? Yeah, because he can also try to put bishop c5 and then a5 and then try activating his king. It's of course tiny bit better for black, and usually if not for this tournament or match situation, you would be very, very happy to squeeze Magnus in this position. It's kind of a dream, but with this score, it's of course not exactly where you really believe that you can get something out of it. Rook e7, king f3, king g7, bishop f1.
Bishop
yeah, Magnus
f1,
is.
that's a nice move. You want to activate your bishop.
Yeah, immediately going for activation, and if white's bishop lands on d5, then it's game over. It's automatic draw.
I
Then
don't see how black is stopping that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, bishop e5 now played. Bishop
So bishop
c4.
c4.
And after
Does he
rook c7, white can simply give up the pawn with bishop b3. It's a completely draw endgame.
That's a nice idea. Let's just show it. Rook c7, you go bishop b3. Black can pick up the pawn, but the opposite color bishop would just be a draw, and that's exactly what Magnus needs. And if white decides, if black decides rook c7, bishop b3, if black decides, wow, he goes b3.
Yeah, that's rather that you don't need to. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to give the pawn. You can, but now Magnus will then go rook d2 or bishop d3.
So
rook
after
d2.
b5, he still has bishop d3.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, now probably rook d2. Yeah, just activating the rook. getting the rook to d5 and then pawn to a4, and this is an incredible blockade.
And suddenly white's pieces are looking more active than black's pieces.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I told before that black is trying to squeeze this, it doesn't apply anymore. I mean, white is just perfectly safe and it's a dead draw now.
9 seconds, Peter, to Artemiev. I think this is match over.
Yes, rook e7, a4. I mean, okay, there are just no real chances. The only chance is somehow to create g5, g4, but it also doesn't give anything. Plus, white even does not need to allow this. So he comes king f6. Where is this king running? It's also a big question. Somehow, maybe king g5, h4. He wants to try to create some little weakness there, but Magnus goes h4. There is just nothing. No ideas, no chances here.
And he falls back with the king. So this clearly kind of implies rook d8. Magnus getting active with the rook. Now the f pawn moving would also invite rook g8 check in certain positions. Even if you compare the rook and the bishop the two players have, it feels like there's just no way that black can have any chances. The only thing is the g3 pawn, but the king is the piece that's defending the e4 weakness as well as the g3 weakness.
Yeah, it's just absolutely hopeless from black side to create any chances.
They might just repeat now. Rook d8, bishop c7, rook a8. That's a draw from Magnus. Artemiev plays bishop e5.
No, of course, Magnus is ready to draw this game any moment, but he even cannot make mistake here with bishop b5. He's threatening rook d7. Now black will play rook c7 probably, after which white will return with bishop to c4. And okay, let's see what you want. Yeah.
Because if rook d7 comes, then you go and black tries to avoid the trade, then bishop c4, hitting f7. So rook c7 was the only move. Artemiev plays it. And now bishop c4, as you pointed out, cutting off the rook, stopping it from entering onto c3. And yes, tough to come up with any ideas for black. Rook e7 might see bishop b5 one more time.
Yeah,
and
I
Peter,
think it's
we have it, the match that the audience, the viewers, the spectators have been waiting for. We've got a finals between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. The two face each other for the first time for a match. It's going to be a four rapid games, but the finals is going to be played over 2 days. Since the World Championship, this will be the first time the two players play each other in a match format. Peter, it's a dream final that I think we were all anticipating and, well, secretly or not so secretly looking forward to.
Well, definitely. I mean, we saw the poll, the spectators kind of sensed it, they felt it. I was not sure at all. I mean, really this, but the first game in Jan's game against Yesipenko could have turned everything upside down. But finally, it did become a very, very convincing victory for Jan. Magnus also, I mean, the result is very convincing, but the match was not as simple as it looks. Yeah, there was this second game where Artemiev was putting some pressure, and then when Magnus managed to even win that game, then it was basically match over.
This incredible stuff. Both players wrapping up their semifinals in just 3 games. Jan Nepomniachtchi, the narrative could have been completely different had the first game gone any differently for Andrei Esipenko, and it looked so close to that. But at the end of it, Jan Nepomniachtchi dominated in game 2 and game 3 and wrapped it up with 1 game to spare. Similar stuff in Magnus, who made it look easy today. Artemiev fought back, but for the most part of it, it looked like if anyone kept the chances going, it was Magnus, a 2-0 lead, playing the third game with the white pieces. Very hard to imagine to make a comeback from there. And Magnus Carlsen, Jan Nepomniachtchi advanced to the finals of the Airthings Masters. We're waiting for Magnus to join us in the Oslo studio to get his thoughts on how the day went. Peter, I was just thinking in my mind that yes, they had the World Championship match, but then after that, the World Rapid happened. And in fact, over there, it was Jan and Magnus both finished with the same points, and Jan finished second, Magnus finished third.
Yeah, basically they all tied first place, yeah, with Abdusatov and Magnus together.
Peter, I'm sorry, but I think we've got Magnus with us, so we'll come back. Let's hear it from him.
Was okay. There were certainly some iffy moments, but overall it's going in the right direction.
All right, and our experts here are really praising your endgame technique there in game 2, going after that Zugzwang, I guess, for your opponent. What sort of tips do you have in endgames like that?
I think in that game it was just a case of being really patient, since there's clearly no way to win immediately, so you just have to probe a little bit here and there and hope that your opponent makes a mistake. And fortunately he did. But it felt like he'd already kind of messed up a little bit when he went for this E4 thing, which was unnecessary. I don't think he had to give a pawn like that. But as you can see, and as has been a theme for him in all of these tournaments, is that he always gets into time trouble, and he does play very well under time trouble, but there is always this added pressure on him.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to ask you, Magnus, world events, has that affected your concentration at all today?
No, of course I've been following, I suppose, a lot of others, but then again, I'm more of a concerned bystander than somebody who's involved, who lives or represents a country that's involved in conflict. So I suppose for others it's rather more difficult. But just some generally you should not invade a foreign country. It's as simple as that.
Now, there's going to be a final starting tomorrow against Ian Nepomniachtchi. Obviously, everyone then immediately thinks about the World Championship match. Do you expect it to be a very different kind of match than the games you played in Dubai?
Yeah, for sure. I don't expect it to be quite as cagey as it was at the start there. Hopefully, a bit more will happen, and hopefully the same result as well. I'll do my best to make sure that happens.
Does that mean in situations like that, when you obviously have done a bunch of preparation against a player, will that preparation come in handy, or do you just expect that's you won't need that kind of preparation tomorrow?
It depends. A lot has also happened in 2 months, or a little bit more than that in terms of opening developments and so on. So I'm not sure.
Now, you've been very dominant in these one-day matches that we now seen in quarterfinals and semifinals. In what way will it be different now with a 2-day kind of match?
I think it's very simple. Just means that you have to do well in 2 days rather than one. And I think in a lot of these matches I've gotten off to great starts and then maybe gotten a bit complacent. This time the format makes sure that I cannot do that.
All right, we thank you so much for your time, Magnus, and best of luck in Airthings Masters Final.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. That's it for the semifinals, you guys. Can you believe it? After how many hours we've been on? 3 hours, and it's already finished. That's a first.
Peter, super exciting final coming up, and this time the players will play over 2 days. So we're going to have 2 mini matches instead of 1, as in the previous year of the tour. And only if the match is tied after the second day of play. Each day they'll play 4 rapid games. So if the match score is tied after the second day of play, we will have a playoff then. That's a big final coming up as Jan Nepomniachtchi takes on Magnus Carlsen. They had an epic World Championship clash. After that, they met in the World Rapid Championship, where their personal encounter ended in a draw, but Jan at the end of the event finished higher than Magnus. He took the silver, Magnus took the bronze. Peter, what are you expecting from this big final coming up?
Well, it's definitely a big prestige duel. Yeah, I really feel like I do remember my games after the World Championship match against Kramnik. It was full of fire. Yeah, it's kind of, I think when you lose, then you lose the match or you don't win. In my case, okay, it was 7-7, but still, I went on to win Vaikanze. Yeah, that was kind of my big revenge on after these holidays. I worked quite a lot, 1 month training camp, and then I went on to win Vaikanze. But that was a classical chess tournament. I was very, very motivated. Now the big question is also for Jan, how motivated he will be. Yeah, he already said that, you know, he doesn't consider this rapid event to be a chance to revenge that match, because that can only happen in a World Championship final. But I think that he will be very motivated. His results have been very good. I mean, he was critical at his play. I think he was mentioning that he was just unable to really concentrate in many of his games. But somehow, whenever he had a chance, whenever he got the flow, then he was really using all his chances, and his score speaks for itself. So I think Jan is in good shape, but against Magnus, it will be a completely different story.
Lots of fun coming up tomorrow, Peter, and we do have a big update that because Ian Nepomniachtchi finished higher in the rankings of the preliminaries, Jan gets the right to choose the colors for the start of the game, and he has chosen black for the first game tomorrow. If it goes into tie breaks, again, it will be Jan who will get to choose the colors. He did top the preliminaries. Peter, what do you make of Jan's choice to start the match with the black pieces?
Well, it basically means absolutely nothing, because if we remember, then whenever Magnus had a choice, he always picked the white pieces. Yeah. So in this regard, Jan choosing black basically gives the same scenario as earlier. But I think it makes perfect sense. Yeah, he wants to see probably how things are working with his black repertoire. And based on that fact, maybe he will adjust his strategy of how much risk he needs to take with white. Yeah, because when you start with white, then you don't know exactly how should you approach this. Yeah, there are all these ideas. Of course, if you win with white the first game, then everybody will tell you that, yeah, this idea of picking white was brilliant. And Magnus has proved many times that he was able to use this momentum of picking the white pieces. But if you, for example, don't win, you make a draw, then I think it gives a much better feeling if you draw with the black pieces.
Well, both players have had a fantastic run in this event. Jan Nepomniachtchi from start up until this point feels unstoppable. He's crashed into the finals, wrapping up his semis in just 3 games. Magnus Carlsen, who is recovering from COVID, health issues, but still he was a little shaky moment to moment in the qualifiers, but never in danger of not making it through. And in the semis, it looks like he's back in action, wrapping up his match as well in 3 games. It's going to be a big, big final tomorrow. I think we could not have asked for a better matchup than the world champion facing his recent challenger. We will be back with all the action tomorrow on Chess 24 for the finals between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. That's one that you don't want to miss. It's good night from us. We'll see you tomorrow, chat.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Airthings.